about, sorry, that's my colleague, just making sure we're recording. We looked back at the experience of digital learning in the pandemic. And as you will be aware, a lot of institutions had to respond extremely quickly to this experience, which was unparalleled in our lifetimes, and turn all their education output into digital learning to make sure that students had a continuous experience of education. Two of my colleagues, Stan Lester and Mandy Crawford-Lee, and Dr. Crawford-Lee is going to be presenting later in this presentation, looked particularly at digital adaptations in work-based learning and in work-informed learning. That is also something a little bit more unique about our project. We were looking at higher education, but we did have a strong vocational aspect to this. We were looking at how digital learning is used in work-based settings, and higher education. There is a lot of work-based learning at higher education. Sometimes people consider that that is more academic, it's more theoretical, but if you think about medicine, dentistry, engineering, these are practical applications at higher education. And we were able to publish through our research. We have a specialist issue of the HESWBL journal, and we can provide a link for that after this event. All of our research is published on our website. We also held a conference symposium in Turin in 2022, and we've published the abstracts of that conference and some of the reflections on online learning and accessibility in that particular event. We also have a further literature review on accessibility. So if you look at our website, you will see all of these and be able to download what you would like to read. Just in terms of a quick run through the general findings, as we know, the pandemic accelerated those developments in online and digital learning. But this was an emergency remote teaching and learning practice. And from that, we've been able to learn a lot of lessons and look at what worked, what perhaps didn't work quite so well. In a lot of cases, there was what we call substitution, where educators had to translate classroom practice into digital space by using, for example, PowerPoint projections without commentary, without extra tools, or simply just talked on a presentation at length. Others took an approach with more considered digital pedagogy, so looked at augmentation, adding to the presentation or adding to the way they were presenting, adding to the lecture, adding to the lesson, adding to the workshop, modifying what they had done before, finessing what they had did before, or completely redefining and looking at a whole new bunch of tools and a whole new ways of presenting with their groups of learners. We looked at active learning, where the learners were engaged. We looked at what might constitute good design in learning using synchronous and asynchronous, so live and also offline elements of learning, and look at developing learning communities, encouraging the students to work offline, encouraging the students to work together. With vocational learning, as we said, we did take this some particular attention. We found some displacement had happened during the course of the pandemic. Some of the learners were facing redundancy or furlough. So their ability to concentrate on their learning, or they were going to have breaks in learning, was influencing what was happening. We did find some innovative approaches to work. We found online communities, we found digital placements. Educators were extremely creative, what we call it in the UK, on and off the job learning. So we particularly had a focus on apprenticeships, which apprenticeships at higher education in the UK have now become extremely popular. And there is what's called on the job and off the job learning. On the job is the sort of learning that the learner picks up as they're working. They may work with a mentor, they may observe their colleagues, they may practice what they're doing. This is active learning. Off the job is that dedicated learning where they're in a protective space, where they have that ability to work with the tutor, or maybe practice, reflect, or complete in-work projects. So we looked at online reviews. We also looked at a digital first blended model. Yeah. So I mentioned that our papers are published. There is the link for the research, a hyperlink, and the web, oh gosh, I'm really struggling today. Just a quick mention about accessibility and inclusion. Learners have diverse backgrounds, and one of my colleagues, Dr. Sofia Mastrokoukou, is going to speak later about how to put the learner first. But this was something that was really a thread throughout our project. And so what we have produced is what we call an inclusive digital pedagogy. So I am going to hand over now to my colleagues. I'm going to stop my screen sharing and hand over to my colleagues from the University of Thessaly and Kainotomia.
Thank you, Breda, for giving the floor to us. And let me share my screen, and me and my colleague from University of Thessaly, Anna, will start presenting you the concept of digital pedagogy.
Well, hello everyone. Just a few words about the University of Thessaly as a proud partner of this consortium. The University of Thessaly is located in the center of the mainland of Greece and has 37 departments and 8 schools, which is a university with its own identity and with a prominent position in Greek educational system. The main mission of the University of Thessaly is the promotion of scientific knowledge through research and the contribution to the cultural and economic development of the local community and wider society. University of Thessaly is known for its excellent research performance and outstanding scientific achievements in accordance with international standards. And now a few words about Kainotomia.
Thank you, Anna. My name is Samaras. I'm a project manager working for Kainotomia, which is a lifelong learning center located in central Greece, in Larissa. We are implementing a lot of vocational training programs at the national level, and we're also participating and have a vast experience in European projects. Our target groups are youth, are unemployed people, are people from all educational levels, and people that have belongs to vulnerable groups. And also we want to promote their integration in the labor market and to give them more opportunities to participate in the social life. So Anna, the floor is yours. Anna, your microphone is...
Sorry, yes. So let's talk a bit about the fourth output result of this project, which is the digital pedagogy report, which includes the meaning of the digital pedagogy, how to achieve blended and online learning, online education models, and new approaches to learning. So while exploring the concept of digital pedagogy, it is well assumed that the COVID-19 pandemic brought challenges to all levels of education that strained the transmission in the new digital age. It should be noted that digital learning and digital pedagogical methods do not depend on situations where there is a physical distance between educator and student, and can be applied in situations of physical proximity as well as in fully self-directed learning, where there is no educator's input. Educators use different methods. From most of the learning models examined, we can recognize that problem-based learning is being introduced to prepare students for the evolving labor market, where social skills and digital skills are required. Digital pedagogy does not invalidate classroom-based methodologies, as these form the basis of new models of learning and very often seek to simulate the classroom in terms of functionalities and communication. So the term digital learning includes any type of learning accompanied by technology or by instructional practice that makes effective use of technology. It's a broad term that encompasses the application of a wide spectrum of practices, including online, blended e-learning, and virtual learning. The integration of the digital technologies in education and ICT skills for teachers, educators, and then to their students is a European priority, and the digital competencies framework for education made it easily understandable. The use of these new methods in education and training, mainly with the help of digital technologies, has created new opportunities to facilitate the search and the exchange of information. So what it is included in the report? Online learning, digital tools, digital learning methods, and asynchronous online resources and tools. Considering the gaps and problems caused by the COVID pandemic in each of the partner countries in Europe, we conducted research and managed to develop guidelines on how to provide inclusive learning in a blended and online environment. We have explored methods of teaching, planning, and organizing the curriculum. The term digital pedagogy does not just refer to the use of digital technologies for teaching, but includes and describes the approach and use of these tools from a critical pedagogical perspective. Digital pedagogy includes databases, emails, websites, internet search skills, design and graphics programs, digital video, virtual and augmented reality, and even other gadgets like webcams, video recording and recording software, which encourages the development of speaking and listening skills. By using technology, we learn and create knowledge differently. It has been shown that technology has led to new theories of learning, such as constructivism, distributed constructivism, connectivism. In addition, other important achievement of technology is that it has helped change the way we interact with educators. So the benefits of the digital pedagogy is that it is observed that developing a healthy culture of teaching and learning with the help of digital pedagogy motivates communities of learners to find their creativity, their self-sufficiency and enthusiasm, innovation and creativity, and generates their interest in exploring new ideas, knowledge, and skills. Finally, digital pedagogy provides access to geographically dispersed experts and learners and involves the interdisciplinary approach and knowledge sharing. So the dimensions of the digital pedagogy is the pedagogical orientation, which includes where educators are included, educators' perceptions of how the learning process is conducted, on how individuals learn and how they should be taught and advised. And also pedagogical practices. And this term refers to the methods the educator uses to teach. And there are 4 factors that present educators' ICT practices, which is the foundational ICT practices, the developing ICT practices, the skill-based ICT practices, and the digital pedagogical practices. the digital pedagogical competencies, the Appelgren and Kreitz argued that the pedagogical competence comprises 6 aspects, which is the attitude, the knowledge, the ability, adapting to the situation, perseverance, and continuous development.
Well, thank you, Anna. And
Thank you.
let me take over from here. And speaking of digital pedagogy, we can say that it is referring to the online education, of course. And speaking of online education, we have to say that if you have to define it, there's a blurred line between this and the distance situation. So in order to be precise, we say that online education in its authentic form, it's the use of e-learning tools in the context of digital learning. So we use technology in online education as an exclusive means for training provision and for communications between the learners. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the educational models that we have included in this report. The first one is the content and the support model. It is based in the separation of the provision of training content and the support from the educator to the learner. The first one, it is given in the learners in 2 forms. It can be provided either in a paper form or either online, which is the case here. So the whole provision, it is called course package when it comes to printed materials, or the web package when it is used for the online education. Let's move on to the next model, which is a wraparound model. It is a less traditional model than the previous one. It consists of a more learner-oriented aspect. The role of educator in this model is more complex. It includes online e-learning courses that have some study guides, activities, and discussions. So the learner splits its time between implementing online interactive activities and working on prefabricated activities. You should take into consideration that under this model, the activities may be carried out synchronously. The third model that we included is the integrated model, which is a collaborative one that includes group work, and in this aspect is the provision of teaching resources accordingly. There's a distinction between content provision and support in this model, and depends on the creation of a learning community. So this model is used to create a learning community that has an element of a real-time communication between the participants who are divided into small groups and carry out activities and tasks based on a visual, audio, or textual basis. The fourth model is the most complex one, is the teaching learning paradigm, come from the Kumi and Stephenson paradigm. It's an online paradigm grid. It's a type of classification model, or we can say it is a system that has 4 different approaches when it comes to online learning, and it is characterized by 4 major features, which are dialogue, involvement, support, and control. These four paradigms are the following. The first one is a teacher-controlled paradigm, specified learning activities. The second one is also a teacher-controlled, but it is open-ended or strategic when it comes to learning. The rest of the paradigms are learner-managed. The first one has also specified learning activities. The second one has also open-ended or strategic activities when it comes to learning. Now, a new approach to learning that we all try to implement during training provision is the self-regulated learning. So a way to achieve that is by constructing knowledge-building communities. This is a learning method that works with groups of people. It is implemented in a way that allows planning, control, and evaluation by the participants. So it's a self-assessment and self-planned and self-controlled learning method. And there are various benefits that arise on both communication and collaboration level. So the learners that participate in these knowledge-building communities, they have access to wider information bases. They are more motivated, and they have the opportunity to learn from other team members. They also have equal opportunities, and they gain a lot of knowledge when they have to express their ideas, thoughts, and knowledge among them. They have a more clear communication among all the small group members. They can solve problems together, and they can provide better balanced discussion, answers, and solutions. And the second learning method, it's learning through virtual seminars. This allows an interaction between autonomous and communicative learning, which is changing. But okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Stergios, and thank you, Anna from Thessaly University and Stergios from Kainotomia. Now I would like to pass the floor to Breda Leyne again, the coordinator of the project from Cogito Development Projects, and she will make a presentation about introducing the framework of the digital competence, which is our first actually output in the project. Thank you, Breda.
Thank you, Ozlem. Thank you very much. So the framework for digital competence is one of the absolute sort of gems in terms of the outputs we've produced. We are extremely proud of what we've produced here. We've spent quite a lot of time on the project and considering other competence frameworks and extracting the merits from them, looking at the context in which they've been developed, the context in which they operate. And what we have considered is producing something unique to the context that we were looking at. So it's unique in terms of being aimed at higher level practice. It is looking at level 5 and above when you look at the European qualifications framework as a comparator of levels. It is for educators, trainers, and learning designers. We are looking at talking to an audience of practitioners themselves rather than their institutions. So we looked at, focused at the practitioner and what do they need? What do they need to improve their competence and their confidence? That's for educators using digital technology, whether they are using the technology entirely remotely or using in a hybrid context. So they may be using digital technology within a classroom setting, but using some digital means to widen the learning scope. So it covers a broad range of contexts, an online, blended or hybrid approach. It, as I said before, could be an academic, a literature or a science degree, but it also can be used to support vocational learning. So in terms of our design, one of the frameworks we looked, which is of extreme significance across Europe, is the DigCom Edu framework. We also looked at some other national and European frameworks, but looked at how we could be more HE focused, and also, and a very strong point for us, to integrate the fully inclusive approach. So the inclusion of learners of diverse needs, was very strong part of our value base in terms of the project. We examined what inclusion meant, we came up with our own definitions of inclusion and looked at what the various needs of different learners may be, whether it was their own learning needs, their own abilities, their own circumstances, that whether they were able to access digital resources easily, whether they were able to have the time and the space to do so. What we did adopt was based on what we call the Com-Pro-Com approach. Com-Pro-Com, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, was another European project, and they developed a model of creating competence frameworks, which really appealed to us. So we adapted their simple 7-part structure. The Com-Pro-Com model is external or activity-based. So what we focused on is what practitioners need to be able to do. It's more activity than knowledge. Rather than telling them exactly what they need to know, we're actually trying to help them express what they need to be able to do. In terms of how we illustrate the model, it's a circular presentation. You will see that in a moment when I show you the diagram. So it's center outwards, themes central to the professional practice, rather than describing a specific occupational role. So these are educators that could be working in a number of different fields, and it's more about their professional practice in delivering digital learning. It's very concise. We have core activities and a set of common standards critical to practice. These break down into 3 levels of detail. There are the areas of competence, the key activities that inform those areas of competence, and then a set of what we call expansion statements, which give some critical factors and explanations. And I'm going to provide an example so we can have a look at this together. So in terms of the web structure, and I'm going to give you another link to our website so you can go straight to the competence framework if you want to have a look around and explore it. We present it as 3 rings or concentric circles. The middle ring has 3 areas of teaching and learning, the 3 core areas for us: planning and designing the learning, facilitating the learning, delivering it, being able to present it with your learners, and then assessing and evaluating the learning. So these are our 3 core areas of teaching, learning, and assessment. The inner circle contains what we call the transversal areas that underpin and support teaching and learning. Very important, using digital resources. And there are many, many different digital resources, some of which are freely available online. So it's how to use them and use them effectively. Managing the digital environment. What is happening for the learners while you are actually presenting? Are they engaged? Are they on camera? Are they off camera? Are they protected if they're vulnerable learners? And also professional development. And my colleagues talked about the different aspects of the digital pedagogy. And we believe that continuing professional development is absolutely critical for the educator. This is something we carry on learning, we carry on improving our practice. So the structure, I might just move mine in case you can't quite see my screen there. We have that circular presentation. The outer ring is titled Ethos, Conduct and Judgment. And in the framework, we also cover some principles that apply across the framework. Our ethos is very much about being inclusive. We ask people to be non-judgmental, to apply these principles clearly and without any prejudice. Conduct, we are very strong on professional conduct and making sure the learner is safe throughout the learning process. Under the 6 identified areas of competence, we have this set of activities that underpin that competence practice. So if you're looking at this on our webpage, you would hover over see assessing, evaluating, and it will take you through to the detail of what we mean by assessing and evaluating the sets of activities and the expansion statements. If you hover over D, digital resources, you will again see those critical activities and the expansion statements that explain them. So let's try an example. If you were doing this online, you would be hovering over at A, planning and designing. And there you would get the explanation that this area concerns planning and designing effective digital and mixed learning experience. At a various level of programs, sessions or interventions, we've tried to be as open and inclusive as possible in terms of the offer. We think a lot of audiences will find this useful. It applies to varied learning situations. These could be fully programmed courses, could be supporting learners at work, or could be supporting individual study, as well as university learning in the very traditional context. We consider the needs and context of a variety of potential learners, and we very much base on inclusion by design. We believe that if you take the broadest approach to inclusion, you will make as many learners as possible feel comfortable and able to use. So we build in relevant levels of accessibility. So I mentioned that we have sets of activities. So under planning and designing, you have 5 sets of activities. What to do to set out what is to be achieved by a program, intervention or session. How to plan the activities involved in a program, intervention or session. How to integrate digital and non-digital activities. How to maximize accessibility. And how to build in review, assessment and evaluation. If I just take that last activity and talk about that a little further. This is planning and designing, but we also have a separate area, which is assessing, evaluating and reviewing. There are linkages between the activities. In order to assess, review and evaluate, you have to build that into your program, build into what you are planning for your learners. So we kind of overlap at certain sections. Planning and designing activity 1. These are the expansion statements. So the activity is set out what is to be achieved by a program, intervention or session, and what this is likely to involve are listed here. Defining the objectives and wider aims to be covered, relevant to the formal program requirements. Considering the context in which the program, intervention or session will operate. Very important. Is it work-based learning or is it a mixed hybrid approach that is predominantly classroom fixed? Identifying where possible characteristics of learning and access needs of actual or potential learners. And what's the implications for design? Do we know that our learners will bring with them some additional needs? Are they general group of learners that are a bit of the unknown? We wouldn't know what their individual requirements are. So can we aim as broad as possible and be as inclusive as possible? Identifying the resources available for the programme. Certain institutions have already using online systems, using learning management systems, or have created programs for themselves already that this might be part of a sub-program. But you may be also downloading and using freely available digital resources and incorporating those. So looking at the broadest range of resources that are available. We've included the barcode here. Again, you can scan here to look at the framework online, and there is a hyperlink for our website. Look at this at the end of the presentation and have a go for yourself. See if you can explore the competence framework and see how relevant it is to your situation.
Oh, thank you, Breda. It was just a preview of the whole year's project. I mean, it was for 2 years, and it was a good wrap up about the digital competence framework. So now we can pass to Ms. Vikki Liogier from United Kingdom. She is the National Head of EdTech and Digital Skills Education and Training Foundation. And she would mention about how can we facilitate the continuing professional development in digital learning competence. As Breda mentioned, COVID had called us very suddenly. So each sector had to think about their continuous professional development, education sector, and also the industrial sector and the commerce sector and tourism, whatever. It covered all of us. So let's listen to Vikki and let's see how we can just further educate ourselves about the digital learning stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much for introducing me, and thank you for inviting the ETF to take part in this conference. And I particularly liked the ethos that you've embedded across this project about accessibility and inclusion. So I'm going to talk to you about the enhanced learning ecosystem, and more specifically, how we can facilitate CPD in digital learning competence. And if you want to continue this conversation post-conference, you've got my handle on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, and you've got some hashtags listed here, and a copy of this presentation will be shared with you. So before we start, I think it's important for me to mention that the Education and Training Foundation is the expert body for professional development and standards in further education and training in England. What is further education? It is vocational education. So 4 key points to my presentation. First of all, I'm going to give a quick overview about the digital divide in the UK. And then I'll talk about the digital teaching professional framework and how it came live with the enhanced digital teaching platform. And then we'll conclude, and we should have time for some Q&A. So the digital divide, I think quite a few of us have mentioned the impact of the lockdown, but what's really important in the impact is that the Lloyds Bank UK Consumer Digital Index actually measured that it brought into sharp focus just how important digital skills are to everyone. And the lockdown created a jump forward. So based on the 2020 data, we are now at 2025 levels of UK digital engagement. And 1.5 million individuals are now more online. And that leaves, nevertheless, 2.6 million individuals that are still not online, so offline, effectively. And 11.7 million people lack the essential digital skills that they need for everyday life. And 36% of working adults in the UK lack the digital skills that they need for work. What's quite tragic in essential digital skills that we need is the social digital divide. And if I take my pointer here, you'll see that for household income, the lower the household income and the lower the essential digital skills are. And similarly, in terms of education, you will see that the higher the level of education attainment and the more essential digital skills we have, and the inverse is also true. So what is learning? Well, learning is the process of gaining knowledge and skills through studying. And our ability, however, to study really depends on several factors. And you've got three listed here. Intrinsic factors, we're talking about motivation, confidence, etc. And extrinsic factors, we're talking about cultural, social, locations, and a wide range of other factors such as gender, age, educational and skills attainment we've mentioned, as well as employed, whether we're employed or unemployed. However, one thing that is quite sad in many cases is that we often hold a preconception of learning as a kind of capital investment that we make at the start of our lives. For instance, you know, you invest in your studies, you go to university or whatever apprenticeship, and then you go into a job and you stop. And the exponential increasing pace of change really means that we need to embrace a growth mindset and adopt lifelong learning. How can we encourage people to embrace a digital lifelong learning? Well, learning is not just an individual concern. It's about really promoting the right condition to foster engagement. And this is key, really. So the further education and training sector has a major role to play in narrowing the UK digital skills divide and offering effective and tailored digital learning opportunities to serve its communities. And according to UNESCO, really the TVET sector and the development of students in digital skills and competence play a key role in preparing them for effective functioning in the digital economy and society. So why develop a digital teaching professional framework? Well, it is really to have a shared understanding of what we mean to embed EdTech in teaching, learning, and assessment. And it's also to provide a clear developmental pathway for educators and improve their capability to use digital technologies and enhance the quality of teaching, learning, and assessment. But most importantly, it is really about optimizing the learning experience of learners and their employability outcome. So this is a digital teaching professional framework. It was developed in 2018 and launched in November 2018. It is a collaboration with JISC and builds from the 2017 DISCOMP Edu, which is from the European Commission and has also inspired you in IDEO. And it also builds from the 6 elements of digital capability from JISC and the 20 professional standards that we hold at ETF on behalf of the further education and training sector. As you can see here, we've got 7 set of competencies which are aligned to the teacher's journey. However, it's not meant to be approached in a linear manner. It's very much an aspirational framework. And we've got 3 stages of performance. The first one, which is blue, and it's exploring stage, aimed at those of us who don't know anything about EdTech. The second one is adopting, and most of us really have been adopting some level of digital tools to support our pedagogy since the lockdown. And then the third step, leading yellow, is self-explanatory. So how is the DTPF different? Well, it is different by focusing on teaching and learning the language of educators rather than simply applying digital skills. It's also different because it was developed in very, very close consultation with the sector by adopting a user-centered design process. And we had 5 levels of consultation. And our advisory group, for instance, had a representative from each of the associations in the further education sector. And finally, it is different because it is a dynamic framework. And it came live in January 2019 at BET, with the enhanced digital teaching platform. The enhanced was designed to remove barriers to engagement. And we did quite a bit of research to really understand what are the barriers to learning. So first of all, it is a mobile-first design as a platform. You don't need to sign up because we saw signing up as a barrier in itself. It is totally free to access. As I mentioned, it has been developed using a user-centered design process, and we've got a strong sort of feedback process and mechanism on the platform. We decided to adopt bite-sized learning modules of 5 minutes each because we know time is a major barrier to self-development. They are pedagogy focused. We have also very strong inclusive ethos. And I hope you will notice that once you try the platform. In order to build that sort of intrinsic motivation that we talked about early on, we've got gamification with badges across the 3 stages of performance. And we strongly believe in social learning and have communities of practice opportunities. Now, this is a platform. I'm very proud to say that we've been awarded 2 years in a row the EdTech 50 Award, and that recognizes the best products in the UK. The platform has now expanded. So besides an EdTech CPD program of 175 micro-learning modules underpinned by the digital teaching professional framework, we also have an essential digital skills CPD program. And in the back end, we've got a management dashboard. So to support providers in really accelerating their digital learning strategy, as well as tracking and understanding how to strengthen their support framework in their organization. There's a lot of support around the learning activities, including some guides. So here you've got a guide to EdTech and digital skills CPD. And I'm sure that Breda will share the set of slides with you. And they're all, once you go into display mode, they all have the links embedded, and I'll share those in the chat. Now, the digital teaching professional framework, I've already shown it to you. It's not meant to be approached in a linear manner. It's really, we've encouraged a butterfly approach. So what does it mean? Well, it means that we very often adopt a very immediacy mindset where we need to learn something. We gather that information when and as we need it. And that's really how we should approach it, in a very aspirational manner. But you can also navigate through the framework in an horizontal progression across all the competencies within one stage of performance, for instance. And we've got a guide to get you started with that, a 60-minute EdTech teacher starter, where we've identified 12 modules of 5 minutes each, which are focused on how to get started in EdTech. Alternatively, you can progress through the framework in a vertical manner through the 3 stages of performance. So we've got, for instance, competency F is about accessibility and inclusion. So you could very well complete those across exploring, adopting, and leading stages. Then we've got the snake and ladder progression, which is by theme. And we've got 7 themes that we have identified. And one of them is about addressing the knowledge agenda, so looking at cognitive theories, for instance, and how to apply that through technologies within your pedagogic approach. And another one is about collaborative working. So for instance, how to collaborate, encourage collaboration between learners, between teachers and learners, and between teachers and teachers. So you've got, I believe, 8 modules identified there. And then, of course, from an organizational viewpoint, the badging process also enables them to track CPD and provide a localized support to upskill their workforce. It supports changes in curriculum delivery planning for an increased learning offer online. Now, one ethos which is really underpins everything that we do is reflective practice, and there is a lot of support around that element. So what does it mean? Well, you know that learning has got no effect unless it does not change our behavior. And the badging process really encourages us to reflect on that little 5 minutes of training and apply it 100% within our learning context. And then look at how it has been effective, what worked and why, what didn't work and why not, and how to improve it and expand it next time. Now we've got an awarded practice role. I've mentioned the communities of practice aspect, and you can see the chat hashtag, sorry, @TechSwap, and you will be able to engage in a pedagogic dialogue so that you can really lead to the co-construction of knowledge and practice that Mercer and Elle are talking about in their work. Now, you'll notice that we've embedded social media functionalities on the platform. What does it mean? It means that you can follow a practitioner that you like, or that you want, you've discussed their shared practice, and you want to really follow what it is that they do. You can like, you can bookmark, you can comment. We really believe in that to create a social framework for learning based on the willingness to share ideas and experiment with things as per sharp rules. So on the platform, we also have essential digital skills. So what are they? Well, the essential digital skills are the skills that we all need to live, work, and study in a digital society. And you can see here that right at the bottom of the pyramid, we've got the digital excluded. And then here we've got the foundation levels. Now, in order to get that foundation level right, you need to be able to do independently just 7 foundations tasks. And I'm not going to read them. You can actually check them out afterwards. And then the program in the UK to support adults with no or low digital skills actually comes at this stage, and you've got initially your life, essential digital skills for life, and then essential digital skills for work. Now, the new national standards for EDS was launched in 2018, and they are the update of the 2006 ICT standards, which were very focused on our desktop, how to save on our desktop in the folder and this and that, while the new essential digital skills are focused on how can we live in a global digital society, how can we actually communicate online, how can we manage our digital footprint, be responsible online, manage our profile, buy securely online, etc. Now you can see that we've got 5 EDS categories for life and work. It's focusing so right at the heart, the foundation skills that we need to be able to function in a digital society. And then you've got communicating, handling information and content, transacting, problem solving, and the belt here right around that purple belt is about being safe and legal online and confident. And that's so important to be safe. So this is our branding for our essential digital skills program. And you can see that we really kept the sort of visual of the wheel. And we've got the foundation digital skills at the heart as well. And then we've got the 5 categories. So that program is aimed at educators who are or will be delivering the essential digital skills entitlement to adults with no or low digital skills. And in England from August 2023, the new digital functional skills qualifications or TFSQs. Now, the approach is very different for this program. First of all, because it was informed through a very in-depth consultation across 70 organizations and 2,500 respondents. And it was commissioned by DFE. And DFE was very keen on measuring impact. So in order to measure impact, we have a self-assessment tool. We've got 20 modules of 30 minutes each. And the self-assessment, but once you've taken it, it's 17 questions altogether, is going to identify your skills gap and give you pointers to aspects within a specific modules that you need to complete in order to fill that skills gap. You've got 5 categories. However, to get a badge for each of the categories, you will need to complete the quiz at the end of each of the modules. Even if you don't need to complete that module, it's important for you to do that. Out of the 20 modules, we've got 2 modules which are synoptic, which are going to be focused on how to teach and learn using digital devices and being online. And then, of course, part of our ethos and mechanism is that community of practice, because we believe that together we can make a difference, and that's the best way to support each other with the various challenges that we are encountering when delivering. For instance, essential digital skills, if you're not a native English speaker, you're going to have languages challenges. If you're working in prisons in the secured estate, then you don't have access to mobile technology. You don't have internet access. So how can you rehabilitate those individuals to prepare them to the world of digital? So as per the EdTech program, we've built gamification. You've got the badges for each of the 5 categories. And once you've completed each of the 5, you've been awarded the 5 badges, you get the essential digital skills colorful badge. And then the community of practice, really, it's about sharing and discussing, adapting the module content to meet the needs of specific learning context, and sharing experience of delivering it, and also formulating a digital pedagogy. And then in the back end, as I said, we've got free management dashboard. It's not going to be free forever. It is free now until the 15th of July. So if you want to try it out, don't hesitate. You've got access to content, and I'll share the link in a minute as well. And the dashboard is going to give you all kinds of reports on the activities, the type of learning that your staff are keen on doing, as well as allow you to create CPD plans for your staff, which will be based and aligned to your digital learning strategy within your organization. So to conclude, I need to drink a little bit of water, sorry. Voilà. So let me do a quick session recap. So in this session, we first looked at the digital divide and our ability to learn and recognize that progress should not be taken for granted. Why? Because neither technology nor individuals' capability to utilize it are static. It's a bit like language skills. They must be applied regularly if they are not to become rusty or worse, obsolete. So according to the Lloyd's digital index, overall 6% of people have reduced their digital capabilities in the last year since we've come out of the lockdown. We afterwards explained the development of the digital teaching professional framework and introduced the enhanced digital teaching platform that has been really designed to remove barriers to learning. And we said it was an ideal starting point to really optimize educators' professional development. And then we dipped into the two hosted programs, so EdTech and Essential Digital Skills, and talked about the critical factor to encourage all of us to critically reflect. So it's not doing, oh, I'm going to complete 100 modules of 5 minutes. That's not going to be very long. Well, 5 minutes is enough, one step at a time. Digest it, incubate it, reflect, apply it, reflect, and then move on to another module. And we've got AI and algorithm in the back end of the platform where that will give you a progression route. And we also mentioned the back-end management dashboard, which is designed to support education providers to accelerate their digital learning strategy. So in conclusion, for us to be able to facilitate CPD in digital learning competence, it is really important for us to support educators in redefining pedagogic approaches so that it includes a consideration of technology. And this is not an easy task, as it requires not only technology access and digital skills, but most importantly, pedagogy redefinition. And the responsibility of all of us, when you think about it, working in education is, of course, to equip learners with the knowledge and skills to start an apprenticeship, find a job, or find a place, secure a place in a university. The purpose of education is, of course, our broader. Our role is not only to make knowledge and skills stick, but most importantly, it is about nurturing the development of independent thinkers and whatever their age may be. So although we live in an increasingly online world, a significant part of the population remains digitally excluded. So we must continue to address this digital divide between those who have been able to embrace the digital world and those who have not. And there are two key things that I would encourage educators to consider. The first one is to rethink the way we teach. And the second is to build a growth mindset and lifelong learning. That's it for me. Thank you very much. And I'll take your questions now.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Vikki. It was really a comprehensive presentation about how to just continue our professional development. So before we pass to Professor Nergiz Çağıltay from Turkey, Atilim University, I would like to give the floor to Breda, because sorry for just cutting her slides before they finished. She has a couple of words to say, so let's go back to Breda Leyne again, okay? Thank you for your understanding, Professor Çağıltay. So we will start at your own time again at 13:15. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ozlem, and I will.
Sorry.
Sorry. That's fine. That's fine. Thank you, everyone. I shall be with you shortly. Just going to share my screen with you. Hopefully you can see the ideal toolkit. This is something we just wanted to briefly introduce to you. Again, it's available on our website, just to give you a little sample of what the toolkit might offer you. So the toolkit matches the digital competence framework, it complements, and you will see that along the sidebar there, we've got some headings. Under digital competency, you will find content that's relevant to the framework. So I mentioned planning and designing for digital learning. You'll see the different areas there, the facilitating learning, reviewing, assessing and evaluating, using digital resources, managing the digital environment, and of course, our continuing professional development. So just to remind you where to find the ideal outputs, the digital pedagogy report, the competence framework, the toolkit, you can find those from our website. So thank you very much, Ozlem, and we will return to our program.
Okay, thank you very much, Breda. Again, I thought that it was finished, so sorry for that again. And now we can just pass to Professor Nergiz Çağıltay. She's a well-known, prominent professor about software engineering department in Atilim University. And Atilim University is one of the first 5 universities, private universities in Turkey, and they have a good going on based in Ankara. So her presentation will be talking about exploring the evolution and advancements of immersive technologies in digital education. Shortly, what is to expect in the future time. So let's give the floor to Professor Nergiz Çağıltay. Thank you.
Thank you
Yes.
very much. Actually, can you hear me?
Yes, it's
yeah.
yes. Also your presentation too. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is my pleasure to be in this very nice team and having chance to make such a presentation. Thank you very much for inviting me. Actually, as Ozlem said, Atilim University has a campus at Ankara, and I am involved from this campus right now. And I have been working in this university since 2003. I will look at from a different perspective to the topic as previous speakers focused on. I will look at the problem of learning from hands-on skills, and then I will discuss a little bit about what we are doing at the Atilim University in order to improve digital learning experiences of the learners. And I also want to give a little bit future perspective. What will happen in the future? What should we be prepared for the future? Currently, as earlier speakers also mentioned, like Brenda said, on the job learning is important and critical. Active learning is important, giving more high-level learning experiences to our learners. This is critical for all ages, actually, for all kinds of learning, from K-12 to vocational education or lifelong learning. But when we come to the medical education, it becomes even more serious and more important and more problematic. Because, for instance, I am working with surgical education situations, and I want to give some examples from this domain. They are doing surgical operations on human beings, and they need to develop their hands-on skills. But they don't have much opportunity to do that before the operational theater experiences. So in all different educational cases and various occupational fields, what can we do in the digital platforms in order to improve their pre-operational learning skills? How can we create such environments in the digital platforms? In order to answer this question, we at the Atilim University, we got 2 big grants from our government, and we worked with Hacı University Medical School in Neurochirurgy department, and we have developed a simulation-based environment to provide them hands-on practical opportunities. We use some new technologies in order to create this environment. One of those technologies are haptic devices, as you see here, and those devices are very powerful to give you force and feedback feelings when you are interacting with the simulation environment. So it increased their understanding of the phenomena. So we also developed some models where we have taken the real life data, MRI data of the patients, and we worked on this data to create a digital form and digital model for the operational area in a detailed manner. And we created our training settings as seen here with 2 haptic devices to control. This actually operation is endoscopic operation, so they control endoscope with one hand and they use the operational tool in the other hand, and they coordinate. They need to use these tools by looking at the monitor and the endoscopic view in the operational area, and they need to conduct the operation. Actually, it is really high skill operation. And we created this environment in the digital platform. Also, we added, as you see here, there is a little square thing. We added a eye tracker to our environment. And there are different models of eye trackers, and we use this eye tracker, the eye tribe model, which is not currently available. And this is, I want to show you a video. This is the video of the environment that we have created for them to give an opportunity on hands-on experience. So here, the learner using the endoscope, which is simulated by a haptic device, as you see. The endoscope has a camera and a light source, and with this one, they don't need to cut the body actually, and this is the operation they do from nose to the brain, and the nose holes they use, and without cutting the not cutting the body, using the endoscope and going to the place where the defects are occurring, and they are using the other hand with the tool to make the operation. Then we show this one to our trainees, the actual video. It is really pretty close to the one that they are currently doing in the operation room. So we managed to create a very similar one in this environment. Other technologies that we can use, augmented reality. So in the real environment, we can create some artificial figures. And also for the same problem, we developed virtual reality solutions as well in our laboratory. We designed all the tools, operational tools, and the operating room in the digital platform. And with this headset, they can feel themselves in the operating room. And as you see, by using this endoscope, they can see inside the body like they are doing in the operating room, and they can continue and practice different operations with this environment. So those are what we have done so far in our laboratory. Right now, we are also working with the dentistry education situations, and I am sure we will have good progress in the very close future. Those are the things that we can do with the current technologies to create some hands-on activities, learning by doing environments for the learners. But what will happen in the future? What should we do, and how should we prepare our learners for the future? How we will be teaching our students in the future. Before going to the future, I want to go a little bit back how it is started. I want to give just a little information about how these digital things are started at the beginning. Do you know the problem of census? Actually, in 80s in the United States, it was one of the biggest problems. So you can collect some data about the citizens of a country, but it is really hard to compile those data and understand how many people living in which regions and their occupations and so on, some detailed statistics. It was very hard. And for this problem, maybe some people in my ages remembering still, they were using some handbooks, notebooks to come our home and collect data about our situations. And analyzing and collecting this data for a country was taking 10 years. So they were doing this in 10 years periods. But when you do this, after 10 years, the data was old actually. So it was the biggest problem in 80s, and they have developed a solution. They used this punch cards. I don't know if any of you knowing this punch card, but the main idea behind this punch card was very simple. For instance, let's say one hole represents the gender. So if there's a hole in this place, in this coordinate, then it can be female or male, or other. If there is no hole, it is the other gender. So by this way, they thought that they may code everything in these punch cards. So it represents that there is a hole or there is no hole, and they code the data accordingly. By this way, Professor Herman, from the field of statistics, developed this idea, and from the notebooks, they punched one card for each person. They coded their information on these cards by punch cards, and they also developed a tabulator machine to read these cards to create statistics. After this solution, they developed a method quickly create statistics about their country. And then this idea developed a little bit further with the electronics, and people said that if there is electricity in one hole, it can be 1. If there is no electricity, then it can be considered 0. So they thought that we can code everything with this idea. So if there are one bit considered as having a value 0 or 1, if there are 2 bits, we can code 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 values. If we increase the number of bits, we can increase the number of values that we can code. So by this way, they developed those computer systems, digital environments. At the beginning, of course, it was very big systems and having low capabilities, and the display units were very hard to use. However, they managed when we come to 1940s, they developed some mainframe computers and managed those systems. When we come to the current situation, we are coding everything like sound, video, picture, everything in these digital forms. So we are at this stage, but what will happen in the future? Let me discuss quickly this. I don't know if you know the Star Trek, the movie in 1960s. If you have familiar with this movie, you may also remember or recognize that we have developed several technologies that they dreamed about. For instance, cell phone. They just used cell phone in their communications, but right now we are using it. They used the automatic doors opening and closing. We are using it. They used video conferencing, and we are using it currently. Several technologies they dreamed about in this movie, we are using it. Also, the Knight Rider, which is in 1980s, it was another movie in television. We were watching it, and these talking cars, very capable cars, self-driving car, and so on. Those ideas are technologies that we are using currently in our society. If we come to Matrix in 1990s, and there are some new movies as well, like Player One. Those movies are also giving us some perspectives about the future, what will happen in the future, so we can make a guess what will happen in the future. So what will happen in the future? In order to make a better guess, I want to also give some snapshots from the history. For instance, in 1980s, what was the technology that affected everything, what we are doing a lot, was internet. Internet changed our world significantly. When we come to the 2000s, mobile phones changed what we are doing significantly. Also, the social media, we can consider another technology that affected us a lot. So what will happen in 2010s, blockchain, NFT technology, and also crypto money Those are the new technologies that changing our world society. If I ask you what will happen in 2030, in 2050, what can you say? Actually, I want to summarize, maybe you know those technologies, want to summarize some technologies that will affect our near future. One of those technologies is quantum computing. As I told you, the digital world right now we are using is based on a bit. A bit has two values, 0 or 1 at the same time. Only one value, 0 or 1. But in quantum computing, a qubit designed as having two values at the same time. So this technology, a lot of people working on this technology right now, and it will also change our world, because when we start using these quantum computers, the speed of the computers will be increased significantly, and also the amount of data that we can store in those computers will be increased significantly. So this technology is coming, and it will possibly change our world a lot. It has a lot of possibilities to change what we are making right now. The other technology that I want to discuss is wearable technologies. So a lot of research going on these wearable technologies. For instance, lenses, wearable lenses. Some smell senses. In order to get some smell senses, they are developing some wearable technologies. Also, the haptic devices that we were using in our laboratory is improving themselves, and you can have such haptic devices in the future and wear it in your hand or in your body, so you can feel the touches, feel the senses in a better way, like in reality. So we can mimic the reality in those environments. The wearable fabric technology is also a lot of research they are conducting, and those fabrics have some memories, collecting data about us and giving feedback to us, so on. Those technologies is another second trend that I can discuss that will affect what we will do in the future. And another one, Metaverse, with Metaverse and these simulations, VR technologies, everything will change. And the education will get, of course, force or impact from those technologies as well. So in this environments, as we are doing right now in our laboratory, we can create very close to real environments. We can create some virtual environments that are very close to the real environments. We can create virtual environments that have the similar interactions between virtual environments and virtual objects and real objects, like real human and virtual virtual representatives. And we can create some environments like operating room, that some virtual bodies can be involved in the operations to help operators to improve the operation. And so those are some possible technologies that will affect us in the near future. And the other technology is the robotic technology and the AI technologies. As our presenters discussed, we are using AI right now everywhere, and the AI technologies, algorithms are improving significantly, and we will use them in the operating room, in educational environment, and also those robotic things will do some of the steps like teaching, helping the learning process, and helping us to gain some skills and so on. The important thing is that when we go back to history and come to the current situation, we see that the steps are in 50 years, 10 years, 100 years or so. But when we go to the future, if we look at the near history, we see that the improvements are in 30 years, in 10 years. So it is faster. The technology is developing fast, and we will see these impacts in our society in a fast manner. So everything, what can we do about the future? Maybe it is scary because we can think that computer will do everything and there's no need for human beings, no need for teachers anymore, and so on. But what I believe honestly is that technology, yes, improving significantly, but human intelligence is something really complex and really different. And in the near future, we should learn those new technologies, and we should be prepared a new society with these new technologies, but we should learn how to use them in our environments. Of course, in the education, for instance, we should use them, but still we will need educators, we will need expert surgeons and human beings in the society, but everything will change with these digital improvements, I think. That's it, what I want to tell. If you have any questions, I will be very happy to answer.
Of course, Professor Nergiz, you have many questions in the chat box.
Yeah, I have
them from the chat box, or I think we don't have question and answer break after each presenter, but you can answer from them. At the end of all sessions, we will have a question and answer. If you can be present, we will be very happy to hear from your voice, actually, because it attracted a lot of attention. Your presentation was extremely original and different to us. And the main finding that I can say from your presentation is just simulating the human feelings. I mean, just you can say that the computer systems can send us feedback from our feelings. It's really, really a fascinating technology, I guess. And thank you very much. A lot of attention in the chat box. You can go to your chat box and answer your questions. And now I would like to pass the floor to Professor Kürşat Çağıltay, and he's, I think, according to me, to my experience, he's the father of MOOCs. He's the father of educational technologies in Turkey, and most of the teachers really know him very well from his digital technologies improvements in Middle East Technical University, one of the prominent universities. But right at the moment, he's in somebody else. Just catched him to Istanbul, to Sabancı University, and now he will be representing his huge project again, a digital teachers project, not to leave anybody behind as a teacher in this kind of environment, which we are moving very fast in the digital movement. So here's the floor, Mr. Kürşat, Professor Kürşat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Is my voice okay? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your invitation, and congratulations on your great project. So it's an honor for me to be here today and to make my presentation. Let me switch to my slides, and then you may better. Okay, I think you can see my slides. So yes, today I'm going to talk about our project, the Digital Teachers Project. But before this, let me briefly introduce myself. I'm a professor at the Sabancı University, Computer Engineering Department right now. And up to now, before Sabancı, I was a professor at the Middle East Technical University, Instructional Technology Department. My main research is mainly on human-computer interaction and technology-enhanced learning. And this project, the Digital Teachers Project, was also initiated as a part of my technology-enhanced learning activities. So actually, we prepared this presentation with my group of this project. So you can see the other group members also on the slide. So, I mean, I want to start my talk with a cartoon that I love a lot. You know, I mean, technology is going too fast and it changed everything. I mean, the business, medical environment, finance, so it touches everywhere. I mean, the cars, etc., etc. So, but on the education side, do we really have that impact? The technology, does it really make that impact? I mean, as seen on this cartoon, technology is going too fast. I mean, big leaps, big steps, and educators just want to touch it, and they would like to use the technology to make some kind of a revolution in education. They want to change everything. I mean, if you look at the motion picture, if you look at the transistor radio, TV, and computers, we expect a lot from technology. And we say, there's a new technology and it's going to make a revolution. It's going to change everything. But it didn't actually happen. And actually, this has been with this kind of, I mean, expectation has been with us for a long time. In 1899, this picture was written, and there was an expectation from schools in the year 2000. They were expecting a school that directly upload the knowledge into the brains of the children or students. But unfortunately, this doesn't realize. This hasn't realized. Only in the movie of Matrix. I mean, you see, I mean, there's a famous scene. It says, "I know kung fu." It downloads everything about kung fu, but we cannot upload everything into our brain. I mean, because of the human evolution. I mean, millions of years, our brain evolved, and it's not possible to change our brain structure just with some tools or with some technologies. Our brain is brain. And so what can we do? I mean, how can technology can be used in education, or how can we make efficient, effective, and satisfactory educational environment or teaching learning environment? And there are problems in education, in our educational system. This is a problem. Those are problems in Turkey, but also those are problems worldwide. So we would like to increase the quality and effectiveness of education. So we need to increase the skills of teachers. This is because teachers are the key. And we have been talking about artificial intelligence and other stuff, but actually we need something more than artificial. I mean, why do we have to use artificial intelligence? I mean, we have natural intelligence in our hands, our teachers. So we have to make our first investment should be on our teachers with natural intelligence. Yes, artificial intelligence may be helpful for them for other things. So the first thing is teachers are important, so we have to put more emphasis or more support on them. And I mean, but this doesn't mean that we have to leave the technology out. No, it's a part of our life, and we need to use the technology, or we need to integrate the technology into education. So all the reports are actually talking about this. ICT has to be integrated into education. And but generally there is a mistake. I mean, whenever we have a new technology, like the artificial intelligence, for example, nowadays, I mean, people says, okay, we have artificial intelligence, let's put it into education. But this is not the case. Actually, we have to know how the technology is going to be used in the education, in the classroom. How can we integrate it into the teaching learning processes? So maybe that's the major problem, because if you have familiar with the history of educational technology, you see that we have been doing this mistake in the last 100 years. So this ICT tools, they are powerful, but they are not the core things. The core thing is the teaching and learning. And there's another problem. Our teaching training institutions, School of Education or Faculty of Education, they are also not doing a good job. They don't train the teachers, the future teachers. They don't provide good ICT competencies to teachers. So because they have a very conservative curriculum, and whenever the teachers graduate from School of Education, when they go to the actual schools, primary school or middle school, they see that actually the kids have very high competencies of technological devices. So teachers generally behind their kids, their students. So in order to eliminate this problem, Ministry of Education generally they provide some kind of in-service programs, trainings, but there are also quality issues, quality problems with those in-service programs. Generally, they are not effective, and teachers don't like it. But everybody says that this report is from Turkey. No teacher should be left behind in terms of digital competencies. So what can we do? Actually, for us, I mean, for our team, this is the solution. I mean, technology is not the actual aim. Technology is kind of, I mean, leverage. And technology is necessary to teach mathematics. It is necessary to teach efficient, effective, and satisfactory science, social science, language, and all kinds of topics. So over here, this is our main motto. I mean, technology is a leverage to teach a better math, science, social science, whatever it is. So this is our project, Digital Teachers, or in Turkish, Digital Öğretmenler. And we initiated this project about 2 years ago. During the pandemics, we collaborated with ING Turkey and Habitat Turkey and Middle East Technical University. And at that time, actually, during the pandemic time, that was a big problem because especially teachers at elementary schools and middle schools, they had very low level of ICT competencies. So at this, I mean, we said we can help some group of teachers. In year 2020, we started this project with 3 partners. We said all of our training programs should be free of charge. ING Turkey sponsored us, and this program is open to school teachers. And we started cycles. In each cycle, we trained 1,000 teachers. Now we are in the 6th cycle, and at the end of this spring semester, we will have 6,000 teachers trained, and their competencies, ICT competencies, will be improved. What the project is, I will mention about it. The purpose of the project was to contribute to digital transformation in education by increasing and improving the digital competencies of teachers who have difficulties in using digital technologies in classrooms. Especially this project was designed during the pandemics, but still, I mean, after the pandemics, we still continue, and there's a huge interest towards our project. Of course, every educational technology project should have some kind of theoretical or pedagogical framework. And we established our project, Digital Teachers Project, on the John Dewey's or famous Turkish educator Tonguç learning by doing approach. It's not just based on teaching concepts, but we said it has to be applied project. The teachers, whenever they finish any module, they have to apply this to their classroom. Then they have to use the technology as a kind of leverage. All the activities, whatever we teach, has to be hands-on, real-life practical opportunities. They have to be, our modules should have some kind of scenarios for classroom practices. Fully online, no, we don't have physical meetings, but we may say it's a kind of, online flipped classroom. It can be considered something like this, but it's not just giving some kind of e-learning materials or reading, but human touch is important. In any kind of, teaching learning environment, human touch is important. We cannot just learn. We believe that, especially in applied area, we cannot learn from just books or other stuff. So that's why we prepared some kind of online flipped classroom environment. We prepared asynchronous course materials, but every week our teachers met with our facilitators, tutors, and so they discuss over the problems or the issues. And every cycle of our project actually started with 1,000 teachers, and about 8 or 10 weeks later, they finished their program. But then that doesn't finish. We also picked the 100 high achiever teachers for the second phase. I will mention about what the second phase is. This is our team. Our team actually has educational technology experts. Most of them have PhDs in educational technology. And in our program, we had about 5 modules. I will give you the data about the modules. And those modules, to complete those modules, took about 8 to 10 weeks. And every module based on national teacher qualifications and ISTA standards, asynchronous and synchronous combination. Teachers first, they studied the asynchronous e-learning materials, and then every week there are the meetings with their educational technology experts, and they ask their questions, or experts explain some of the critical issues. But this was not the only thing. This 8 or 10 weeks, we also included some seminars on different topics, on feedback, assessment, future educational technologies, or even psychological support. Especially this was necessary during the pandemic. And in addition to this, social presence is also important. Social interaction is also important. So during this 8 to 10 weeks period, we also organized some kind of online coffee hours to just talk about the project or other things. So this increased the the social presence of the project. We have a learning management system. We share all of our e-learning content from this Moodle-based learning management system, and all the courses, all the course materials, everything is run around this learning management system. We have 5 modules studied during the in some phases 8 weeks, sometimes 10 weeks terms. Digital citizenship and internet security, creativity and visual design. And under this creativity and visual design, there are different tools, especially Web 2.0 tools and other stuff we teach, for example, Canva, Powtoon, video preparation software. And the final module is about critical thinking and assessment and evaluation. Again, how to make online assessment and online evaluation is the topic of the 5th module. Those are some screenshots from our asynchronous interactive content. Teachers follow those modules. For example, on the top, digital citizenship topic. And then there are assessments, and students, the teachers have to follow all those asynchronous content, and the learning management system follows their progress. And this is our synchronous sessions every week on Thursday nights and Friday nights. Our tutors, our education edtech experts meet with their small group teachers. They spend about 1 hour together with teachers, and so they either show some of the critical things, they answer their questions. In every group, there are about 25 people in each session on Thursday and Friday nights. So that was the first phase. 1,000 teacher starts. They finish all those 5 modules, and then whenever they finish, we also give them some kind of certificate, completion or successfully completion certificate. But this is not the end of the project. Actually, after then, we pick 100 teachers among those 1,000, the top performers. And the second phase is about virtual reality and augmented reality technologies in education. So then we continue our trainings. We give the teachers how to use virtual reality and augmented reality in their classrooms. For this purpose, we donate them for every teacher about 30 VR Google Cardboard type of glasses. You see some pictures teachers shared how they use those kind of technologies in their classrooms. So we also train them how to use this technology. But you have to keep this point into your mind. Those teachers are not, they don't have any technical background. We especially pick the teachers with the lowest amount of technical knowledge. So we take those teachers and then we train them. We take them from the bottom and even to the VR and AR level, because there are some very simple VR AR tools, and so they are doing very great job. And there are also some software to develop some virtual reality, augmented reality materials. We also provide them CoSpaces software license for 1 year. Here's an example, a couple of examples about, for example, on the left side, you see an interactive system about the dinosaurs or other stuff. And this is our meeting. We gave them training about how to use VR glasses, online training Zoom session. So this is another Instagram share from a teacher. Whenever we distribute those very cheap glasses to teachers, they start to use in their classrooms. So this photo is comes from Güneş teacher. She's using in her classroom. Those are some of the other teacher projects. They created some kind of tiny metaverses on different topics, for example, for space, for animals. Even during the pandemics, schools were closed, but one of the national holidays, they celebrated this national holiday on the metaverse environment. The teacher created a kind of metaverse environment, and the students met in this environment to celebrate the national holiday. Here is one example, again shared by the teachers. There's a short video. So this is about a science class. I mean, the kids explore the Earth's inner structure in an augmented reality environment. So this was again created just by teacher, and she shared this with us. I mean, what she's doing. And here is another example. I would like to share this one with you. This school is near the Syrian border. Very poor neighborhood, but the teacher was very enthusiastic. So he used those glasses, our cardboard glasses, and he prepared something for the history class. Here's a short video to give you an idea.
Efendim? Ben şu alta gideceğim. Neredesin şu anda?
Bir tane merdiven var. Bir saattir gidiyorum.
Eyvah, Çanakkale siperlerdesin. İşte burada savaş yaptı. Görüyorsun değil mi atalarımız?
Aradan gitsem de.
Git.
So this is from a history
Yavaş nereye
class.
gidiyorsun? Çarpacaksın şimdi. Neredesin şu anda? Anlat bakayım bize.
Bir yer ara var. Gizli geçit mi? Neresi? Oradan geçeyim.
Nasıl siperler? Saklan şimdi sipere bakayım göreyim. Saklan çabuk oraya. Saklan. Tamam. Fazla gitme. Çöp var yanında. Kalk şimdi siperden çık. Ateş et.
Okay. You see, I mean, as you see at the beginning of the video, we distributed those 30 cardboard glasses, and every kid actually has one. And so they are experiencing this immersive learning environment at the Syrian border, as you see. So the teachers are actually very happy. I mean, this motivates the kids, and at the same time, they are learning very efficiently. And so we also did some research studies about this. I mean, we published an impact report. It's in Turkish and in English. If you are interested in, if you want to know more about the project, you can. So all the details about the project, but in overall, all the teachers are actually very highly satisfied, and more than this, actually, they started to produce their own digital content. They are the producers, not just consumers. And I think this is one of the most important part of the digital teachers project. And every term, as I said, we accepted 1,000 teachers, and only about 100 teachers dropped out. And this is really very, very good number, since there is no mandatory. I mean, this education is just voluntarily. They participate in education. There is no pressure on them, but all of them follow the trainings, and they really like all the asynchronous lessons, synchronous lessons, all the assignments, and they are really very happy. And every term right now, I mean, we have about 8 to 10,000 applications. So every cycle we started to get more and more applications from teachers. So the satisfaction level of the teachers are about 90%. They are happy with the content, they are happy with the lessons, and then we are getting really very good feedback from teachers. So to finish, the project is highly appreciated by the teachers, and as I told you, I mean, they turned from consumers to producers, and we are getting very good feedback from teachers. If you need any further questions, you can find the answers in the impact report. As I told you, it's in Turkish and also in English. Right now, we are accepting applications from teachers, and then soon, in a couple of weeks, we will start the 6th term of the project, and the project also get a lot of awards nationally and also internationally. That also makes us very happy, I mean, to see the results of our project. And thank you very much. I hope I could give you some insights about the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kürşat Çağıltay. It was really, again, an interesting presentation, and you have many questions in the chat box too. Attracted a lot of attention, just like Professor Nergiz. And I think the important point in your project is the applied approach, I guess, because the most important thing in learning and teaching in digital environments is the application. Because whatever you do in a classroom, just donate it with the ICT tools and everything. If the teacher doesn't know it, doesn't know how to teach through them, so it is worthless, and it is just kind of, you can't use it. So it is also another waste of economy too, if you ask me. And this is great. I mean, this project is great for the applied approach. First of all, I must say that. And secondly, I think we need more enthusiastic teachers. And it is really important that you are just serving this Digital Teachers Project free of charge. And really, I can say that most of the teachers in Turkey, I mean, they know the minister, but they know you too. Sometimes more than the minister. And thank you very much for this great presentation. And we have a couple of minutes left for question and answer break shortly. If you have any questions, you can directly ask now. And otherwise, we will just go to a break. So anything from Slido, Alex? I think no.
Ozlem, I've put a question in the chat.
Oh, you have put a question. All right. Yes, please go ahead.
No, you can read. No, it's really great, and thanks everybody, and big hugs for all the colleagues. And I wanted to know, and from your reflections, all this brilliant work done, no, in partnership or at Turkey, how much this can influence the policies of the ministry, how much discussion is there, how much these results are presented with the responsible people or the policy makers. I'm not talking of high level, but technical level of the ministry. They look at these things and what they can take for mainstreaming in their strategies and the way forward, because that's where it's very important for us to know more. Thanks.
No, this is a great question. I can just shortly answer the Turkish environment, I mean, Turkish policy environment here. And as Mr. Kürşat said, I mean, working with the ministry officers is sometimes hard because Ministry of Education has lots of roles, you know, they have to find the resources, they have to donate the classrooms, and they have make the teachers online readily online. I mean, online readily. So if you ask me the project results to affect the policy implementations in Turkey, of course we share. I mean, there are thousands of, I mean, around Erasmus, if you talk about Erasmus, thousands of projects are happening about VR, about digital learning, digital teaching. Of course, each country is representing their results to the ministries, regional. For example, next week we will have the Multiplier event for the local partners in Nevşehir about this IDEAL project. So we invited many, local partners and local deciders, decision makers. It is a local regional event, but of course it will have a national impact. We do our best, but if you ask me, Mr. Kürşat will know it better because he works with the Minister of Education very closely. As he's just showed the first slide, yes, the digital transformation is going very faster, and education is just trying to catch it. But there is a problem of curriculum changes. There's a problem of implementation is not that much easy and quick. And you have to make another resource for the implementation. Maybe the most resources needed for the teacher trainings. That's my idea. As a member of Ministry of National Education and as a member of a university student, I'm a university at level 2. So this is my own idea. Maybe Mr. Kürşat can give an answer, and others, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if for those all those participants, I strongly suggest to read Stanford University professor Larry Cuban. I mean, Larry Cuban made an analysis about the use of technology, and in his book, he's mentioning about Thomas Edison. I mean, about 100 years ago, Thomas Edison, he expected to replace textbooks or even teachers with the motion picture, the movie, the film machine. But this didn't happen. Why? I mean, Thomas Edison was a very brilliant engineer, but he didn't know the dynamics of the classroom, or he didn't know what's going on in the educational system. So if you just focus on the technology stuff, it does not work, and it cannot change anything. So we have seen this problem with the motion picture, with the radio, TV, tablet, and nowadays we are talking about Metaverse, etc. So I mean, it's a very complex thing because we are dealing with the human beings. It's not just a procedure follower machine. I mean, we are completely different, and we are emotional beings. So that's why we need natural intelligence. Our focus should be on the natural intelligence, but the artificial intelligence may help the teachers to decrease their workload, to help them to make their job efficiently, because teachers are also overloaded. There are too many students, and in order to decrease their administrative work, we can use all those kind of techniques. But the teaching, learning, pedagogy, that's a completely different thing, and it can only be done by teachers, from my point of view. Thank you.
Ozlem, and for the professor, since all these materials develop, for example, do they go to the main thing, since Turkey, also the ministry has the EBA system, no? For example, can this be populated? All the developed, what's the practice? I mean, what's your opinion? And
yeah, I mean, this is a little bit political thing. And I mean, it's really very hard to work with the Minister of Education in Turkey because the administration changes very frequently. We discussed our project with the teacher training directory, and after a month, the top manager, he changed. So then, instead of, going with the Minister of Education, we are going by ourselves. I mean, we can do something for kids, we can do something for teachers. So we put our energy into our project. But if the Minister of Education wants to make some collaboration, we are also open. But Ozlem, she knows, I mean, it's really hard to work with the Minister of Education. We have limited energy, so we just want to put our energy onto our teachers. Up to now, we helped about 6,000 teachers, so that makes us happy. So if we continue with this way, we can train maybe more, 10,000, 20,000. It's like walking on the beach. I mean, we try to help. I mean, some starfishes. Up to now, we helped about 6,000 starfishes. So we will continue to work on this. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, it is really hard to work with the huge organizations, I mean, national organizations actually, as they also have lots of tasks and not applied. I mean, they don't have sometimes time for the applied applications to be shared by their own how can I say, their own registered accounts. So sometimes I also think the same thing, because for example, EBA is a huge system. Of course, we can share all the implementations around Turkey, like yours. It's a very special one actually, but the procedures are really slow. I mean, we have to catch digital movements very quickly, but we will see what happens in the future. Yes, it is really hard to move through the corridors of ministries in such kind of big populated countries. So anybody else who have a ministerial example? For example, in UK, what's the situation working with the ministries?
Should I say something a little bit about the UK position, Ozlem?
All right, thank you.
Obviously, we've heard from Vikki Liogier from the Education and Training Foundation, which is an organisation which is part funded by Westminster government in England to do that very job, which is to ensure that practitioners have a very good and comprehensive programme of CPD to support all aspects of teaching, learning and assessment. And clearly digital is a large part of that work. My organisation, we're a not-for-profit, we're a representative body. Our job is to represent our members and our higher education sector in and with government on aspects such as these, which is how can we better prepare, how can we better ready organisations and institutions and our teaching and tutor staff to better respond to what is quite a volatile and changing sort of educational landscape. So certainly evidence supports any lobbying or advocacy work that we do. So we are always looking for best practice, good practice, where we can share and collaborate, across nations, but also across institutions. So our perspective is always about actually where is the evidence that supports what we lobby on behalf of our sector for and about, because obviously we want policies that are fit for purpose for our sector and for our institutions to work within.
Thank you very much for reflecting us the situation in the United Kingdom. And again, thank you very much, Professor Kürşat. So we give a break now. So we will go on in the afternoon session. And after, let me just check the time again. We will be here at 14:15 again. So we will go on with our afternoon session and afternoon presenters. We will start with Erica Farmer from United Kingdom. So bye for now, a 15 minutes break, and then we will come back on 14:15.
Sorry, Ozlem, 14:30. We are.
I'm sorry, 14:30.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you too. Bye for now. Hello, everybody. And now we are back to our international conference, and with Erika Farmer. She's the founder of Quantum Rise Talent Group from United Kingdom. And her presentation is going to give us an idea about what does the future hold for digital learning. We just leave the floor to her. Thank you very much, Ms. Erika Farmer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, it's been really inspirational, everything that we've heard this morning. It's been fantastic listening to different points of view, and the one thing that's been really clear to me is the focus on helping our teachers and educators grow their confidence and their skill set and their mindset when it comes to digital. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit today, but let me do a bit of a formal introduction here. So my name is Erika Farmer. I've got 20 years corporate and learning and development experience with some of the UK's largest brands, such as British Gas, Virgin, Specsavers and LV. I've headed up large L&D departments, and I've actually been involved in digital learning since 2012, where we introduced interactive webinars to financial advisors and underwriters at LV in a way for them to engage and support the sales process. More recently, I've undertaken a TEDx talk talking about how we could reform digital learning and education through the digital first mindset. And I've just started working with LinkedIn Learning as an instructor as well. So that's a bit about me and my background. But let's get started. Okay, this is going to be an interactive session for you guys. And I want us to start thinking about the why. Let's take ourselves back and understand why digital is so important. So I've got a little poll here for you that's going to pop up on the screen, and it's going to ask you the question that you can see on the slide right now. So according to the World Economic Forum, what percentage of 5 to 11-year-old children who are at school will go into a job that doesn't exist yet? Okay, you'll see the poll that's popped up on the screen. What percentage do you think of kids will go into a job that doesn't exist yet? So why is it important that we ready our workforce of the future? And I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds just to click on the poll, click on your answer, and we'll see what everybody's thoughts are. What percentage do you think 5 to 11-year-olds at school, and this is worldwide, will go into a job that doesn't even exist yet? Okay, let's have a look at the results right now. So you can see that I've got 45% of people. Some people have said 45%, some people have said 55%, and some people have said 75%. Actually, yeah, it's 65%. So interestingly, 2/3 of children who are in school are going to go into a job that doesn't even exist yet. Just wrap your head around that. You know, so we know there's automation, robotics, artificial intelligence, all of this stuff already exists, and employers are looking at this right now, but these are skills that we don't even know exist. These are tasks and activities and occupations that are future focused. So the way that we design and deliver education and training needs to be in that same space. It needs to be able to recognize that the skills that we have right now and the curricula that we're delivering in educational establishments right now cannot be fit for the future, because we don't know what that looks like yet. Okay, let's just take the poll off the screen. If it's still on the screen, just click off, so that's not there for you now. So again, going back to the World Economic Forum, this is what they say. Well, much has been said about the need to reform basic education. It's simply not possible to weather the current technological revolution by waiting for the next generation of workforce just to be better prepared. So we have specifically here in the UK, in parts of Europe, we have an interesting view where we actually expect people to be digital natives when they rock up to the occupational workforce. We just expect people to be able to understand and do things, but we know that actually that's not going to be good enough. And we need to put the learners at the center of what we're doing. And that means as educators, we need to think about a shift. We need to think about, oh, we've just got a poll up on the screen. We'll just take that one down right now. We need to think about what the shift is to put the learner at the heart of everything we do. So let's take a step back and think about some of the outdated methodologies that we know are still happening and aren't going to be there to set up the workforce for the future. So we've talked a lot about some of this today, but I'm just going to work some of this through. We see a lot of learning management systems where very proudly the educators or the L&D, the learning and development community, will say, yes, we've got gamification, it's brilliant. You complete a load of courses, you get a little sticker, you get a downloadable certificate, you might get a little star, but so what? What does that actually mean? Many people are not motivated by getting the gold star. And this is where it comes into understanding things about accessibility and inclusion. Good gamification is where you take a gaming approach to motivation, whether that's being scenario based, whether that's understanding people's intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and build that into a learning experience. It's not about how many stars you can achieve on your learning management system. And that's the difference, what I mean about poor gamification. We still see a lot of educators who are reliant on purely classroom-based learning. And just because you've got people sat in front of you in a classroom doesn't mean that they're learning. And educators and teachers and trainers, I think, have perhaps sometimes been fooled by that over the last kind of 10, 20 years. Just because you've got someone nodding away in you in a classroom doesn't mean that the teaching is good and there's going to be application into what's required, whether that's an assessment, a test, a practical application, an apprenticeship, a qualification, whatever that might be. Programmatic response. Typically in learning and development, we've been very guilty of creating large numbers of curricula to a small, short learning need. Excuse me. And what that could be is actually sometimes we need to think more about learning in the flow of work, where we sequence small bites of learning, which is accessible for the learner in the moment to be able to increase their performance, rather than 12-week residential training courses where people have a lot of theory thrown at them, but don't always have the application available to go and practice, to learn how to do what they've learned in the skills. And we've got to think about what does that mean in regards to how we design learning, how we sequence learning, excuse me, and how digital can support us to do that. When many teachers and educators flipped to synchronous online learning, whether that was Zoom, Teams, whatever that might be, we took what we used to do in the classroom and we put it online. And if you're lucky, you might get a breakout room where you go away and do a different exercise, or you might go and have a chat with the group, for example. And this is what I call purely conversational online learning. This is only about 20% of the functionality and the way you can engage learners in the online space. If you're running virtual classrooms where people are coming into Zoom or Teams or GoTo or whatever the platform you're using, and you're not asking them to integrate and you're not asking them to engage every 5 to 10 minutes, you've got a bit of a problem, because you're talking too much and you're not supporting the learners taking the new knowledge from the working memory into the long-term memory. You've got to do something to be able to create a new habit. And purely conversational learning isn't going to support that achievement. It's the same with chapter-based e-learning. So if you have online systems and platforms that are theory heavy and are chapter heavy, I mean, I've seen some safeguarding recently, e-learning that had 16 chapters of text. and maybe a little quiz at the end of it where you have to get 80%. That is not good practice e-learning or digital learning. And if you were to put yourself in your learner's shoes, I think you'll find you'll get pretty bored pretty quickly if that's the expectation of your online learning, particularly if you've got about 40% of neurodivergent learners, which you're likely to have as well. People learn in different ways and people have different concentration spans because the brains just are different. We can't just give people content and expect them to go off and do stuff with it. And this links into my last point. Being content heavy and theory heavy is going to turn off around a third of your students. So just have a think about what that learning looks like. What does your curriculum, what does your current online learning look like? And if you're ticking any of those boxes that I've talked about just shortly in this session today, then I'd really recommend that you go away and think about how you can make that more accessible, diverse, interactive, and engaging. We've got to think about what modern learning truly is, because being remote doesn't make it modern. And we've already today talked about the skill set and the mindset shift needed for the educators and investing in our teachers and trainers to be able to design and deliver great online and digital. And I was really inspired when I saw the video of those kids in Syria, you know, with the headsets, and it's the teachers that are creating that content. Oh my God, that just blows a lot of us out of the water. And that should be the norm. But actually, I know there's a lot of teachers and trainers and educators that would actually be a bit worried if you ask them to create something like that. So we have to support with the context and the confidence, but that all starts with the learner and asking learners and understanding how people learn best. Because no more than ever before are we going to have such a divergent workforce who learn and think in a different way. And this comes down to the skill set and the mindset of education and learning. And this is what the future of learning and education, we believe at Quantum Rise, is all about. So I'm not saying you throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there's lots of great practices happening. And again, we've already seen some fantastic frameworks, some guidance. The work that's been done around digital pedagogy is absolutely fantastic. But let's think about what the practical application of that means. So when we talk about synchronous learning, what I want you to think about is engagement and interaction. So what are your learners doing in sessions, whether that's in person, whether that's virtual classroom, whether you've built a flipped classroom type environment? What are you doing to get your learners to engage and interact straight away? They need to be doing something, because it's not a presentation, it's not a lecture, they're not being talked at for hours on end. Because you're going to keep someone for about 16 minutes during an hour and you're going to lose them after that. That's what the research tells us. And for anything asynchronous, it needs to be flexible and it needs to be adaptive. So learners need to be able to choose a learning preference, not a learning style, a learning preference of how they wish to consume the content at that point. So for example, if you're working in a remote or hybrid environment or teaching in that way, a lot of people will want to take the dogs out for their lunch, and actually being able to podcast or listen to some learning content during that time is actually really reasonable to be able to request that. It might be you sitting in a busy office undertaking a qualification with your employer. You don't want to watch a video that's got a load of talk over in it. You might want to read a blog. So it's around creating learning tools and learning resources that meet the need of the learner, not just in their individual preference, but also the environment that they find themselves in. But going back to some key points that have been made earlier. Professor Stergios, who's the Vice President of Educational Technologies at New York University, told the Times Education Summit, with EdTech, we need more of a focus on modifying tools that are already used to aid collaboration, rather than chasing the next big thing. So we're seeing a lot of fuss around Metaverse at the moment. You know, you log on to LinkedIn at any part of the day and you see we're using the Metaverse for this, we're using the Metaverse for that. The Metaverse doesn't even exist yet. It's a concept created by Facebook, Meta, and Silicon Valley, which is going to sit on Web 3.0 and create an interactive environment where we can bring assets in and out of those working environments and those flexible environments. What you now currently see is virtual reality. It's not the metaverse, but it's the precursor to the metaverse. And like the presentation we saw earlier, this is absolutely the future of learning technology. But to the points made earlier, actually, we need to get our educators and teachers and trainers in a space where they're really comfortable understanding it's the learner that has to sit at the heart of everything we do. So we build our skill set around that principle and premise. When we're thinking about implementing technology to support online education, particularly for undergraduates, the first big thing we learned is innovation is overrated and execution is underrated. That's what Professor Shirky said. We get so het up around these new technologies and we get so excited about things that sometimes we forget the important factors, which is the learner experience and the educator's confidence, skill set and mindset. And sometimes it's a case of taking ourselves back to this. And this is part of our plan. Digital shouldn't be a plan B or a plan C or a plan D or a plan E like it was prior to COVID. And we were forced into online. And actually, there was a few of us that were doing digital education before then, but the majority of the world picked up what they did in the in-person space and they put it online. There was a huge amount of money plowed into e-learning, online learning, virtual learning, but how much of that did we actually think about our educator skill set and mindset? That was the minor response. So as we stay to adopt our online learning presence and digital in the future, we almost need to step back a bit and see, let's audit how our educators feel right now about using technology. Would they select it as their plan A? Or is everybody happier going back to the classroom because that's what we've always done? And don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for the classroom. But as we grow and scale, we become more of a global economy and we start to look at cost efficiencies, look at net zero, the impact we're having on the environment with travel. We really need to be thinking about a more flexible and adaptive way of education and learning. So I want you to think about, how do you leapfrog with your digital learning technology and the strategy that sits behind that? Because if you're just getting on Zoom and Teams and you're just presenting and maybe using your breakout and using some chapter-based e-learning, you're already a little bit behind the curve. So how do you keep up and leapfrog? Well, let's have a look. I want you to start with the digital first mindset. And this isn't the scary thing that we think about. It could be something simple as when you get an update to your smartphone, you don't go to a 2-day training course to learn how to use it, okay? When you get some flat packs furniture that you need to put together, you don't drive to the flat pack furniture store and get somebody to show you how to do it. Sometimes we just go onto YouTube. Sometimes we just have a go. Sometimes if there's your dishwasher has broken down and there's an error code flashing, you don't just phone the engineer, you Google the error code. This is what we mean about the digital first mindset. And it's taking these kind of digital principles around accessing and consuming content into the educational space. It's about on and off access of the job in terms of learning. We've talked a little bit about that earlier. How do I learn in the flow of work? What digital tools enable me to do that? For example, bring your own device. A lot of organizations are still quite resistant to learners downloading learning onto their phone or accessing their learning management system this way, which is crazy because it's the first place we all go when we want some information or content. Having this available on and off the job unlocks a lot of this. We've talked a lot about accessibility and inclusion. We already know that there's new tools coming out from Teams, from Zoom, from different platforms where You can change the language, you can translate, you can transcribe, you can have a signer for sign language, you can put subtitles on for somebody who might be hard of hearing. There's already some basic stuff that's happening that we need to really embrace as business as usual. And the big one for me is the upskill of our educators and our teachers and our trainers. It's not good enough that we just put our educators into the space of using technology and expect them to be able to do it. It's a different pedagogy, different mindset, different skill set. We need to support our educators and teachers and trainers to ready the workforce of the future. And this comes with the stuff that you guys do, research, thought leadership, working with bodies like Erasmus and UVAC and the universities, ETF, companies that we were talking about earlier, to bring together that best practice. And the key principles we believe at Quantum Rise when you're designing any kind of online learning is interaction. So the learner is interacting with you and doing something, they're engaged, so they're interested, they want to be there. The material is adaptive, so it enables people to learn how they learn best, and it's flexible, so it's available in different formats and in different ways. So if you look at all that, there's nothing really that crazy or mad or future focused in regards to what I'm asking from you as educators and thought leaders. It's just about having more intention and being more deliberate in the digital space. And that means we need to think about things differently. We need to consider Web 3.0 and the Metaverse, the blockchain. There's already my coaching qualification with the EMCC sits on the blockchain. So it's understanding what does that mean. Again, skill set and mindset, learning in the flow of work. So making it so it's part of what we do. So we're agile learners and we can reach for new skills and behaviors to apply them in record time when we need them. On demand, so it's there when I need it. I can't wait 2 months for a training course when I need those skills for my job right now. Leapfrog and accelerate is the piece that's really important, because again, 2/3 of kids at school right now going into a job that doesn't exist yet. So the emphasis is on us as educators to give them the skills for jobs that don't even exist yet. How does that work? That's around critical thinking, emotional intelligence, making decisions, planning, learning agility, all of the stuff that the World Economic Forum talks about. Hybrid design, so I can access my synchronous learning from a group of people on my own, virtual, remote, in the classroom. It shouldn't matter. The learning experience for the learner should be the top quality no matter where they are. And that comes down to our design principles and making it personal. This is one of the big things that's come out of the pandemic. So Dave Ulrich, who is the godfather of HR business partnering, he says the one thing he really hopes that sticks that comes out of the pandemic is personalization. We've personalized our homes. We're personalizing our work schedules, school runs, pets, parents, working hours, well-being, for example. So we need to think, what does that mean in a learning context, an experience? So if I was to, and I can notice there's a question in the chat, so I'll come to that in just a second. If I could start to summarize, I guess, where we are with this, our job isn't to teach. Our job is to create digital learning opportunities which inspire, motivate, and build the opportunities not just to learn, but to do, to be able to do something with that new information. So how do we understand that, and how do we take that first step? It's the digital first mindset. It's getting ourselves in the space that we need to think digital first, and for all the reasons that we've talked about today. So the first one I would say is accessibility. That's what's really important. We've got such a diverse world of people, and it's important that we recognize that and appreciate that and build our learning to sit around that as well. So thank you very much. Okay, let's have a look at that question that's just popped in. Question for all delegates on the chat. Do you think that the messaging around digital pedagogy is what's holding back implementation. We have the tools, but cater to the learner should be the priority. I think that's a fantastic question, and thank you for whoever put that into the Slido. And I would personally say, and I've probably just said this already in my session, I don't think it's the messaging, I think it's mindset. I think if you get people on the journey and understand their why is it important for the learning experience? Why is it important for the future of the workforce? Why is it important for you as an educator and the success of what you're doing? It's like anything, it's the what's in it for me. So messaging, I would say mindset, but I'd be interested to hear other people's views on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erica Farmer from United Kingdom, Quantum Rise. And I have a couple of notes in my notebook from her very precious presentation. I think the applications that we use, which we don't really have training for them. For example, you mentioned about your telephone. I mean, for example, your dishwasher or washing machine. So yes, we do look for Google, and if we can find the code over there, yes, we can just handle it by ourselves. But maybe when it comes to a mission that you have to teach somebody something, I mean, so this is something else, I guess. So that's why the mindset is very important. The first is the mindset. So because it's not like you are just searching for your own problem situation. So it is again, comes according to the educational systems. It again comes to the curriculum of the universities, of teaching departments. Really, we have to add something before they are graduated. So as I told before, I mean, the curriculum change is really an issue in most of the countries. So we have to be much more practical. So again, a policy level, again, a personal level, it's the mindset. Thank you very much.
And how do we facilitate, how do we become facilitators of that to make it easy for people to learn rather than guardians of content? How do we, because that's what people in the future are going to need, right? So
yeah, as you said, there are many people, many children that they will have jobs which do not exist right at the moment.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a quick question from me, if I may, Ozlem, just to Erica. Thank you so much, Erica. That was brilliant. I'm just wondering about sort of digital first being part of a culture, part of a mindset, but inevitably when you're talking to senior leaders within institutions, the question of resourcing and investment becomes an issue. And obviously we've heard from Vikki from the Education Training Foundation in the UK, whose offer primarily is free to the user because they are sort of subsidized and invested by government to do just that, to raise the standard of teachers, tutors and practitioners in colleges primarily, but increasingly in universities. But how do you get around the issue of resources and investment, the size and scale of investment?
Yeah, it's a great shout, because people already, you almost put the pound signs in your mind, don't you, when you think about digital and like, oh my God, it's going to cost me a fortune. And this is where we're already using, like the quote that we talked about from the New York University, we're already using some good tech, the stuff that's already been done, like Teams and Zoom and a lot of online free resources and toolkits. And gosh, you go onto YouTube and you type virtual classroom best practice and you get 1,000 recorded webinars that's come up. So it doesn't need to be a complex situation or a complex experience. I think it's step by step and taking it to the right level of your teachers and educators, but it doesn't need to be a big expensive project where you invest thousands and hundreds of thousands of pounds in stuff. You take it step by step, and there's so much good thought leadership from Quantum Rise, from UVAC, from all the other organizations, ETF, etc., which you can curate for free. So it's almost like just take the first step rather than worrying about all the stuff that could paralyze it around it.
That's great. Thanks, Erica.
Yeah, critical thinking, Breda's put in the chat as well. That's such an important thing, critical growth mindset and critical thinking, absolutely.
Thank you. And as you have mentioned, inclusiveness also in your presentation, Erika, we will jump now to Dr. Sofia Mastrokoukou from University of Torino, and she has a lot of research about inclusiveness, and she has also conducting researches by herself with the hearing disability people. So her presentation is about what about the learner experience, what makes an inclusive approach. So the floor is yours, Dr. Sofia.
Thank you so much. Probably now I will be a little bit provocative, since I also saw the, the comment of Breda, and I will a little bit provoke your critical thinking. So let me share my screen. So actually, because to be honest, my nationality is Greek, I think that, the title of this, if I may say, presentation, it's like a rhetorical question, and I will throw a little bit the ball to all of us in order to understand how actually we interpret inclusivity and inclusion. So I will move on, and I will start with a quick riddle. So let me read it for you, and I will wait also for your answers. A father and his son are in a car accident. The father is killed instantly. The boy is critically ill, is taken by ambulance to the operating room. The surgeon takes one look at him and says, I cannot operate on him. He's my son. How can this be? Do you know the question? Do you know the answer? Sorry. I don't know if we have anything on the chat. It's his mother. Exactly. Exactly. Perfect. So sorry for being so, provocative. Exactly. The surgeon is his mother. Thank you for your quick answers. So I will start, talking about inclusivity, and I will argue that inclusivity is a value concept, because it's a conceptual noun that can be explained that is something to do with values. So when we are presented with a value, we tend to incorporate it into an existing value system. So there is an interpretative filter, if I may say, and we measure worth. How does this fit in my value system? Or do I value this? So actually, when we are talking about, inclusivity, we tend to take a position. So that means that inclusivity, it's not only a value concept, but also includes positionality. And if we go also a step further, in a value framework, we are nudged towards considering the worth of our current values. So if I have to add something on, on the definition of inclusivity, I can say that, of course, it's a value concept that comes from a value framework, includes positionality, but also criticality and reflection. So here comes the opportunities, the troubles, but also the tensions. So let me move on a little bit. So actually, we can say that also inclusivity has to do also with our personal pedagogical position. That means that inclusivity depends on a range of factors. That means our notions of the function of higher education, and not only. Our notions about our role as an educator, as a teacher. Also, our curriculum design and assessment design decision. how actually we are going to design our curriculum. How are we going to design the assessment? It's a matter of also personal position and personal decisions. Also has to do with the legislation of our country, or also the legislation not only at national level, but also at European level. So that means that we have to explore this in relation to concepts of inclusion and diversity in a critically reflective frame. So let's sum up and wrap up a little bit. What is inclusivity? I used for this definition, I used, an open source dictionary, the Oxford one. And actually, to be honest, inclusivity has to do to include everybody, to involve everybody, and also in a way to, if I may say, to try to exclude all the barrier languages. So we have to actually come to discourses of inclusion at a time when prevailing neoliberal policy aims to position higher education as an economic venture and students as customers. We need we need actually to discuss about inclusion. Terms such as access, widening, participation, equity, equality, and diversity, and lifelong learning commonly feature in discourses of inclusion related to higher education. So the shifting meanings and fluid uses of these terms serve as an indication of increasing tension between neoliberal economic forces and the role of higher education in society. Please have in mind that unfortunately, I don't know if unfortunately, I'm sorry for taking a position, but actually the tendency now is that, higher education for at least as regards the neoliberal policy is seen as an economic venture and students as customers. But even if we want to adopt, if I may say, this neoliberal policy, again, inclusivity is important because it has to do with the fair access. The notion of fair access has its root in liberal concerns to promote access to higher education to individuals for backgrounds or vulnerable backgrounds who are deemed to have high levels of potential ability. In recent years, admissions policies and practice have become an explicit focus of national policy in the UK, in Greece, in Italy, and in Turkey, underpinned by concerns to promote fair access to all. Students recognized as having the potential to benefit from higher education. So here, as you can see, is the evolution of, the young population, the youth population by 2025. But the most important thing, check this graph, has to do with the projected tertiary enrollments in 2025. And we can see Turkey, for example, we can also see Italy. There is an increasing, if I may say, percentage of tertiary enrollments. That is why on the neoliberal policy, students are also perceived as customers. So why inclusivity is important? Here, if we can say, first of all, if we want to, I really don't like the neoliberal policy, but even if we want to consider students as customers, these customers have to be satisfied, right? And also, we have to promote participation in higher education and also the equality of opportunity for learners if we want to increase our customers. So as you can see here, in higher education institutions, now we are talking about accreditation. And in order a higher education institution to be to gain this accreditation, has, for example, to focus on massification, access agreement, widening participation, that comes also from the students' diversity, and of course, internationalization. When, for example, we are talking about inclusive practice, in order to get also this accreditation, we are talking about, of course, there are fees, that fees are affordable by all. There is fairness and social justice, and also a universal design of learning of the university. We talk about also best practice, which has to do with the curriculum innovation, enhancing the student experience, and improve learning. So to be honest, as you can understand, if we are talking about a high-level higher education institution, this institution has to actually adopt inclusive practices, which actually are going to enhance the student experience, and they are going to improve learning. They are going also to provide our students with a curriculum innovation. And the most important thing, thanks to this inclusive practice, we can talk about satisfied students. So what is widening participation that you saw? One of the major structural cultural challenges to higher education institutions is requiring higher rates of involvement and rates of achievement to those who have been traditionally underrepresented and systematically excluded. So inclusivity is an attempt to address systematic occlusion to the right of education. And here is where comes inclusivity to remove the barriers. As you can see here, when we are talking about widening participation, there is an inheritance. Europe, according again to the European Association of Higher Education, targets 50% participation rate between the ages of 18 and 30 years old in the higher education by 2025. That means actually that we have to be inclusive by widening the participation, at least as regards the half of the students that are hosted by a specific higher education institution. And when we are talking about widening participation, that means that we have to include students and give the right to the students coming from lower socioeconomic background, people with disabilities, caregivers, ethnic minorities. So as you can understand, we are changing, to be honest, the definition, not only the definition, if I may say, the vision of the higher education. The aim is not higher, is to be honest, to be inclusive, not to actually to focus on the excellency, but there is a totally different approach. That means that through inclusivity, we can focus on excellency because we provide exactly, if I may say, the same rights to all. At least that means that when we say the same rights to be educated to all students, means that we are going to widen participation to all, if I may say, people coming from different backgrounds, and we are focusing on the students' diversity. Here are the barriers. That means, I don't know if you want also to comment on that. Here are the barriers, and it's like I wanted to be honest, to open the floor for a little bit of discussion, because the barriers has to do with the engagement. That means that, you know, even when we organize an open call, an open day, in order students from the high school to come and actually get to know the university that they are going to study, or the college they are going to study, we have to engage everybody, even, you know, during the pre-admission procedure. Then the most important thing that I have also have the experience is the admission procedure. For example, for people who are deaf, it's very complicated. They need actually to have a mediator, they need to have an interpreter in order to fill in the application form, to fill in, you know, the admission form, or even, for example, for people with special educational difficulties. Again, it's the same, because they are using a lot of technical, if I may say, terms. They are used also the bureaucratic procedure. Even in the UK, if you are going to focus on the UK higher education institution, or even, to be honest, I'm talking about the Italian. If you are if you are a person with disability, the whole admission procedure is very complicated, and, to be honest, does not allow to be autonomous and to facilitate the transition from, you know, from the high school to the university, the transition through, you know, towards adulthood. Of course, we have another barrier is the retention. Another one that actually is part, if I may say, of our daily life. We can see that if you're a person with disability, or coming from for a vulnerable group, or even you remember the slide with the widening participation in heritage, even if you are coming from an ethnic minority, again, the percentage of engagement in university culture, student experience is very, very low till today. Even also, if you are coming, I didn't add it, but now, you know, I'm always thinking of it. If you are a member, an active one of the LGBTQIA+ community, and then I'm coming also to the language, the terminology that we use, even while we are teaching. If, for example, we have to think about if we are using a gender bias terminology or not. If, for example, we are using people first language while teaching or not. So also the language that we use while teaching, or the language that we actually include in our teaching materials, the materials that students are going to work on them, they are going to study, is very important. And again, till today, language is one of the most important barriers. Remember my first slides that are related to inclusivity. We have, if I may say, what we have to do, we have to overcome our own stereotypes. We have actually to try, not in the inclusivity, not to adopt, you remember, the first interpretation of the term that has to do with a value concept. It's more than our personal values, inclusivity. Then, of course, we have the physical barriers. Till today, we cannot talk about an inclusive higher education institution if, again, we are facing physical barriers, and has nothing to do exclusively with physical disability. So, if I may say, just the simple sense of belonging, just, if I may say, the simple sense of, you know, creating, and also, how can, nourishing this belonging, I think, is the key in order to talk about inclusive and to make us actually our teaching more inclusive. So I always finish, I know that I am brief, but I always finish, because I really like to interact with you, I always finish the presentation by giving you the floor in order to ask you, where are we in all of this? What we do by ourselves in order to, you know, to improve the inclusivity, to redefine what is inclusivity. So I will open a little bit the floor to all of us, and I would like actually to, you know, to know your answers, your interaction to that.
If any responses come quickly right at the moment, we can take it, but after just half an hour, we will have a question and answer session, so maybe we can just answer your question over there. I mean, just provoking questions from Dr. Sofia. Okay, this is great. I mean, it was a really great presentation about the inclusiveness, because we if we don't work in the inclusiveness business, I mean inclusiveness sector, so we cannot sometimes understand the real needs of the learners and maybe the real needs of the teachers too. So thank you very much. We will just discuss later on. Okay. So right now we are with Dr. Mandy Crawford-Lee from, again, United Kingdom. She is from the University of Vocational Arts Council, and she will mention about what does a journey look like to become an inclusive digital further and higher education institution, which is really important to mention and to discuss, maybe together with Dr. Sofia's question too. So I'll leave the floor to Dr. Mandy Crawford-Lee. Thank you.
No, thank you, Ozlem. And it's really great, colleagues, to be rounding off this wonderful dissemination event to reflect on the final piece of our Erasmus Plus puzzle of how to ensure inclusive digital education for all learners in higher education delivery, whatever the context. Indeed, the project and its partners really were asking quite early on the question of what is the ideal way to transform higher education institutions, and how can senior leaders of those institutions be supported to develop greater clarity around the role of digital in the delivery of institutional strategy. And really, what did we need to do to support those leaders and governors? Well, we have developed a digital readiness roadmap to help those institutions realize the benefits of a long-term strategic approach to digital technology, and to move their institutions from being reactive organizations, i.e. those that deliver emergency technology-enabled learning, teaching and assessment, to becoming better at identifying strategic opportunities that support becoming integrated and inclusive universities and higher education institutions that embed digital technology and profound digital pedagogy far more effectively and strategically at scale and in a sustainable way. My name is Mandy Crawford-Lee. I am the Chief Executive of the University Vocational Awards Council, one of the UK partners of this Erasmus Plus project. And UVAC, as we are more commonly known, is a UK membership body set up by the higher education sector, working on behalf and for the higher education sector back in 1999. And since then, we have been championing higher level technical and professional education skills, including higher and degree apprenticeships delivered by universities. And I think actually not long ago, if you ask most university leaders in any country how long it would take to move their operation online, their answers would probably range from several years to possibly decades. And yet in March 2020, the higher education sector internationally moved mountains in a matter of just a few weeks. The rapid response showed that faced with a clear and immediate need, university staff were very well equipped and worked together very effectively to adopt new technologies, new tools and ways of working at real pace. Where previously leaders may have asked, is this at all possible? When faced with a decision about digital, I think now they would say it absolutely is. So we carried out a bit of research to underpin all the intellectual outputs of this particular project, and Breda has done a very good summary of much of the findings. But from the research, as partners, we recommend that this roadmap is used alongside the competency framework and digital pedagogy toolkit as a way of facilitating some of that conversation and some of that discourse. But our own research really showed that over the last 2 years, digital has been introduced into many aspects of life in higher education, including higher education in further education colleges, and has impacted on the student experience. For leaders, it really has touched every area of strategic importance, from investment, not only in IT and estate, but to investment in staff development as well. Indeed, with the acceleration of new technologies, changes in demography and the labour market, and a rapidly shifting policy landscape, higher education is operating in what one contributor to the project described as the VUCA world, described as volatile, uncertain, changing, and ambiguous. COVID-19 was really just one example of the challenges that the HE sector will face and has faced. But those with a long-term digital strategy in place have found that it helped them better cope with the pandemic, giving them a response roadmap and accelerating processes already underway. I think it's fair to say that the HE sector, the higher education sector, has probably underinvested in digital for quite a number of years. It has not seen technology as the key to strategic advantage. And when it comes to bricks versus clicks, I think investment in technology has lagged. The past decade, certainly in the UK context, has seen campuses expand and expansion with institutional new builds, spending billions on buildings, but only millions on digital equivalents. From our research, we concluded that digitally enhanced learning and teaching going forward is a much more nuanced offer than the online learning of the pandemic or the post-pandemic return to talking heads in large lecture halls. A seamless mix of face-to-face components, digital elements, the physical and the virtual, the ideal education merges the best of what has been learned about these different environments and offers something that is greater than the sum of its historic parts. There is now, I think, an opportunity to build on the lessons learned from the emergency measures of the pandemic. We described them as the Pedagogy. I think Vikki described them as the digital jumps that were made. But they really have started to shape the future of digital learning and the use of digital technology in higher education. We've got new concepts. Digitally enhanced learning and teaching, or DELT, is another new concept, an acronym that we're now using, but that must now integrate digital tools seamlessly into the learning journey to improve and augment it. And as a result, achieve better inclusion, engagement, accessibility, attainment, and outcomes. The environmental and sustainability agenda is an additional major consideration. Universities are setting out their strategies for achieving net carbon zero, including how estates are used, how much travel is required of staff and students and guest speakers, for example, when there are virtual alternatives, and the impact on carbon emission targets are all part of the debate. I think what is needed now is a focus back on rethinking and redesigning practice. Staff and students have realised the benefits digital can offer, but the next step is understanding how to integrate technology in a pedagogically informed way. For example, what are the creative ways to use digital tools to support students with collaborative group work, synchronously or asynchronously? We've heard a lot of that throughout this afternoon's dissemination event. It's not just about having the digital skills and confidence. It's about redesigning learning and assessment to realise the affordances that digital tools can offer and ensure students are prepared for an ever increasingly digital workplace. But the issue of digital inequalities must be recognised. In the UK context, for example, according to the higher education regulator's own survey during the pandemic, 52% of UK HE students said their learning was impacted by slow or unreliable internet connections, with 8% severely affected. 71% of those student surveys reported lack of access to a quiet study space, and 18% were impacted by a lack of access to a computer, laptop, or tablet. One of the great things coming out of our own research is the potential for online learning to make learning and teaching more inclusive and accessible. As online and blended learning programs have expanded, it can be observed that there is an increased sense of belonging from students who are, for example, part-time, who are learning at a distance, who have some form of disability, who are parents or carers, or just have to balance work and study to pay their living costs. So our aim has been to develop a set of position statements that are contextually agnostic. The variety of the HE sector internationally is arguably one of its strengths and makes a one-size-fits-all approach impractical. Instead, this project has sought to provide useful prompts for an assessment of readiness by an institution. The response to each statement and stage of readiness will vary from one institution to another, perhaps from one country to another. But we hope that in the process of exploring them, ideas and strategies will emerge that put digital at the forefront of thinking about how to deliver an overall long-term vision and strategy for delivery in higher education. So where do institutions start? To get the most out of the position statements suggested in the roadmap, and I'll provide more detail in a moment, an institution or organisation really needs to start with a long-term vision of its future and the role technology can be expected to play in it. By self-assessing their readiness on the institutional journey to deliver the goal of adopting an inclusive digital learning strategy for the 5 stages of passive digital, supportive digital, interactive digital, immersive digital, and integrated digital are ultimately to support the delivery of this vision for students, for researchers, and all staff, notwithstanding the success of strategic initiatives, will depend on robust and appropriately resourced infrastructure, with different starting points for each institution determining the pace and scale of required digital transformation. Digital transformation may feel like a trending buzzword, so institutions should pause along their journey for definitions and context. In this project analysis, digital transformation is the cultural, organisational and operational change of an organisation through a smart integration of digital technologies, processes and competences across all levels and functions in a staged way, and leverages technologies to create value and to enable greater agility and resilience in the face of changing circumstances. What it's not primarily about is technology adoption. It is first and foremost, as we heard from some of our guest speakers, about transforming the mindset and culture of an organisation to ensure the technology can be deployed as a multiplier of impact. Similarly, digital transformation should not be conflated with prior technological shifts, which focused on digitisation and digitalisation. So I just want to ask you a little bit to just choose one of the 3 option statements that you think best describe either your organisation or perhaps your view of higher education or higher education and further education by using this particular Mentimeter polling survey. I think the link is in the chat, but actually you can just click on the QR code by using your phone. So I'm going to give you a few moments to do that, but I'm just going to go back to in effect, what we've set out in terms of the fundamental approaches. So our 5 stages for self-assessment mean, in summary, the following identification by an institution with no judgment being made of one status or another, but that progression from one stage to the other is apparent in the accelerated use of digital technology in delivery. That being passive digital means face-to-face is central across delivery and learning opportunities. Digital technology is used relatively ad hoc by individual teaching and assessing staff. Moving along the road to supportive digital means face-to-face delivery is central, with digital technology used as a supplementary tool. Interactive digital means hybrid approach with face-to-face learning is supplemented by digital methods. Moving along to being more immersive in the digital approach means digital technology is core to most learning experiences. And finally, to the status, the supreme status of integrated digital in terms of the institutional approach is where inclusive learning opportunities are maximized by the way emerging technologies are exploited. On the roadmap, there are 7 areas to consider. Our roadmap not only frames the institutional journey on the roadmap as stages of readiness, but also looks at those 7 areas to consider that provide a series of deep and relatively coordinated culture, workforce and technology shifts that enable new educational and operating models and transforms an institution's operation, strategic direction and value proposition. Technology is an integral part of the student and staff experience is something which must not be an add-on. Following an emergency pivot to online delivery at the start of the coronavirus pandemic, the higher education sector, I guess globally, is now in an emergent context as providers consider their long-term learning and teaching strategies. So we've moved from the early pedagogy to something very different. Digitally supported, fully online remote learning and teaching were common in the higher education sector before COVID-19. However, the pandemic led to what Barbara referred to as a gravity assist, or as Vikki described it, as a digital jump. I guess they're both metaphors that describe the way in which digital and online learning and teaching practices were propelled forward, extending their reach across the whole educational community. Back in 2020, emergency measures for online education were generally seen as good enough, and decisions were made quickly and under pressure. It's how this particular project emerged, just from that very context of what was delivered and the impact of that delivery and the adaptations of that delivery made under those extreme health emergency pressures. But now in the emergent context, as we move away from simply reacting to the circumstances of COVID-19, there is an opportunity to build on those developments and shape the future. If that is to happen, digital must become a core and intentional part of learning and teaching and staff development. Now is the time to stop thinking about how individual technological tools can enable teaching and instead consider how a holistic digital outlook can enhance learning wherever it takes place. What difference might digital make to the learning journey if designed in from the outset rather than added as an afterthought? How can digital tools support a great on-campus experience for full-time students, whilst also making learning more flexible, inclusive and personalised for students who are learning off-campus, including those learning in and through work? Thinking strategically about digital technology will allow HE to make the most of its potential to create a step change in the way students and staff interact with each other. Digital needs to be recognised as a strategic asset and as a way to help deliver high quality higher education and a higher education institution's mission. It must be given, I think, the care and resources this implies. And I think the project's outputs, the materials and resources are a great contributor, a great starter for those considerations going forward. The next 2 slides really are the roadmap in full as they appear on our website. As universities, colleges, and higher education institutions negotiate a shift to digital, they do so against a background of multiple and varied pressures. We've already spoken about some of those, but there is a great opportunity, I think, to bring digital seamlessly into the teaching, learning, and assessment journey, and for enhanced digital learning to contribute to better inclusion, engagement, accessibility, attainment, and outcomes for students, whatever their context. But doing this will require bringing people, practice, pedagogy, space, and technology together in the conversation as part of the discourse. We do need to make some discursive shifts with regards to the use of technology in teaching, learning, assessment. It also means serious thought must be given to how we design learning in the digital age. So for that reason, we have produced, as part of our collaboration, our outputs, including the roadmap that examine the recent and current context of digital enhanced learning in higher education and via the digital pedagogy toolkit. And I think actually we need to be mindful that we've heard from the Education Training Foundation's competency framework, but remember that was created prior to the pandemic. Through this Erasmus Plus project, we've actually brought all of those competency frameworks bang up to date. And there was a question early on about whether or not we used other resources as our benchmark, and we most certainly did. But I don't think that the education, the EduComp model or the ETF models really reflects on the adaptations that we have observed have been made since the pandemic in 2020. So we've seen this project, this collaboration, this wonderful European sort of partnership as an opportunity to take stock, share insights, and use the lessons learned from the emergency measures of the pandemic to shape the future. The goal of the roadmap has always to be as a form of assistance to help senior leaders in higher education institutions realize the benefits of a long-term strategic approach to digital technology. Here you can actually scan this QR code and it'll take you straight to the roadmap where you can download it. So I do hope you do that. That's my ending of my presentation. I wonder if we had any results from the Mentimeter that we can reflect on. Alex, is there anything to share?
Yeah, just going to share my screen. These are results of your poll. We had 45 votes, nearly 20 participants.
Okay, so we've got kind of an even split. So the middle ground seems to be the most popular space that's occupied by our delegates today. So I think we've got a very varied pattern according to the type of institution, the institution's location or geography, and the nature of its provision. But it seems as though we've obviously got some movement along that roadmap, which is really encouraging. So, so thank you very much. Thanks for that, Alex. So thank you very much for listening. It's been a great event. So I'll hand back to Ozlem. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mandy. It was again another opportunity to see such a precious presentation about the roadmap and about the understanding of the higher education institutions about that digital learning, digital transformation. So what I have taken a note is whatever we do, as Mr. Kürşat's presentation too, it's I think the core and the common point. Staff development and the organizational culture is really important, because if you do not have an organizational culture, whatever you do as an infrastructure, which sources you have been using is just going to somewhere else. I mean, just staying over there. Maybe you have to just make the staff to be ready for that too. And thank you very much. And now we have come to question and answer session. We can just now open our if you want, of course, cameras, and just if you want to just ask any questions to our presenters or to anybody else, if you want, just took some, notes to maybe Mr. Kürşat, to Miss Nergiz also, because we will take them after the meeting. We will take them to them, then they can answer it later on. So.
Alex is going to lead us through some of the questions from Slido.
Oh, great, Alex, thank you.
Okay, so some of these questions were answered earlier, but just want to see if anyone can answer some of them that haven't. So is affordability a practical barrier to inclusion? If so, does financial access help here? Digital access, anyone take that?
I'm just going to answer that, so if Mandy, if that's all right. I just want to take you back to something that Erica said, which is don't look for the big expensive technology first. Look at what is the mindset that isn't so expensive. Digital access can help with inclusion. It can help you think beyond the immediate needs of the institution and look at and offer wider opportunities to learners. I think that doesn't have to be expensive. We can you know, invest in very high tech solutions, but you've seen some of the those little cardboard glasses that you saw, they have very low tech as well. So I'll stop there.
Okay, I believe this was a question for Sofia. Do you think that neurodivergency in young people is an under-researched element of accessibility and inclusion in online learning?
Yes, of course, it's an under-researched element of accessibility, and especially regarding the inclusion in online learning. The problem is, for example, that we are not actually, you know, qualified in order to teach, or we don't have this, you know, a specific as teachers, you know, the huge gap that we have. If we don't have a pedagogical background, it's very difficult, you know, to know how to teach, to know, for example, how to create an inclusive curriculum. And unfortunately, the majority of us, I think, I include myself, is that actually we start teaching and creating our material based on our experience when we were university students. So of course they are under research because actually we don't adopt, and it's a pity, we don't till now, or for example, there are few, I can say, attempts to, you know, to include them in the online learning, but not only as regards neurodivergence in young people. I think we are talking also about other, for example, as I told you, other categories of or difficulties or you know, troubles that people coming from vulnerable groups affront.
Okay, I believe that rounds up the questions that we received from Slido, so I open the floor up.
Since we are talking about inclusivity, if you want, what we do actually? Or what are you going to, you know, to take with you from all this presentation? How how we can become more effective as educators, as teachers, even through, of course, through, you know, digital learning. How we can become more inclusive?
Well, Sofia, maybe I can give you an answer about our university, first of all. I mean, for the inclusiveness, yes, there was a question over there, right? If the barrier and if the barrier can be the resources for inclusiveness, it can be sometimes. I can just mention about ongoing debate. Because, for example, if we are talking about the vulnerable groups, which are visually impaired, I mean, hearing impaired and physically impaired people, yes, you need some other resources to teach them, to make teaching available for them too. So I can say it is not a barrier, but has to be checked at the first level. I mean, if your curriculum can be changeable, I mean, your curriculum can be of course, ready for that. You can have the curriculum on the desk with the researchers and with the doctors and academicians. It is ready because we know how to make a research and how to make the application, maybe on the paper. But on the implementation side, from the remote access or from the school, classroom access, it needs some other additional things to be resourced by the university senates. This is what I can just tell, because as far as I know, for example, for the visually impaired people, there has to be some reading sessions for the classes and or other alphabets for their usage. And for remote access, there's another thing to be done for the visually impaired people. But of course, it's not a barrier. I'm not talking about a barrier, but it is just like, so what's the next level? We have to do that. And the next level, we have to do that too. I can understand the debates are going to where, from that step to another step to another step. And it is not the curriculum change only. So that's what I can just tell you about the debates in Nevşehir, Hacı, Bektaş, Veli University. We have organizations for the physically impaired people. Definitely, I can say our university is a kind of, how can I say, friendly for that, physically impaired people. And also we have a badge for that from the Council of Higher Education in Turkey, but not for the other vulnerable groups, I can say.
Perfect. I see all these comments also from yeah.
Vicky's made a really good point about listening to the individual learner feedback. And this is not just an exercise in sort of collecting data, but also enacting and implementing, change following feedback. Accessibility is about the technology interface and learning content. And she references again a UK example where there are new public sector accessibility regulations to display an accessibility statement and accessibility action plans publicly. I think I made a point earlier that we've explored the digital first sort of concept, and that's obviously writ large across not just our work, but work that Content Rise are doing and ETF are doing, for example. But that should perhaps be a concept or an idea or an ideology that should go hand in hand with inclusivity first as well. The unique aspect of our project is that we had inclusion, accessibility, leveling up really quite central to everything that we did.
I think there are no questions coming from the chat. And yeah, and yes, Breda has given the importance to the toolkit here. The toolkit will be ready in all languages in a very short time, also in Turkish. So maybe we can just wait a couple of minutes if you have any more questions. Otherwise, I will just make the closing of the conference. So it was, anybody else is, no, okay. So this was the IDEAL Project Conference, International Conference. We're really happy to have you all here, beginning from the morning until that afternoon time. Maybe some of the cities are coming to the evening now, because we have contributors and watchers from all over the continent. So thank you for being with us. All the outputs and all the results of the international conference and all the our outputs will be shared freely by the public and in our website. And later on, of course, we will just go on for the sustainability of our project outputs. We will do each partner will do their best according to their roadmaps of the sustainability. So I would like to thank our partners from Italy, from United Kingdom, and from Greece. And I would like to thank all the participants, registrants to our international conference, and hoping to see you again in another conference, in another time, in another project. So we will just be in touch, and will not digitally be in touch, and we will be online again once again. Thank you very much for being with us. Goodbye for now.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
And thank you to you, Ozlem.
Thank you too.
Yes.
For being an excellent facilitator, and also to Alex.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Alex is our technical miracle. For Breda and me, I mean, especially for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. See you soon.
Soon.